What's up, folks, and welcome into a very special edition, the Thursday edition of exclusive Blue Cross Bowl coverage here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by our friends at the Tennessee Highway Safety Office, who remind you that fans don't let fans drive drunk. From the studios here in Columbia, HQ, we like to call it, Wayne Neely sitting in the saddle here alongside our good friend, our trusty colleague, Mr. David Wilson, who's joining us here on this great Thursday. David, how we doing this afternoon?
Wade, I'm doing good. Normally, it's the other way around. I'm sitting with Mo, filling in for you while you're out traveling near and far. But I'm excited to be with you today to talk some little Blue Cross Bowl football. Obviously, this is the best part of the year where 18 schools get together and try to fight, with 9 coming out with the state championship. And obviously, it's always fun in Chattanooga for them to get down there and get started on a great weekend of football.
Yeah, couldn't have said it any better myself. And you're right, it's a little bit of a switcheroo here, so we get to come full circle. I'm excited to spend some time with you. I'm excited to be with everybody today. Just kind of setting the stage. Our show will go on at 2 o'clock as normal, but for an event as big as the Blue Cross Bowl, we figured, we got to have a little extra juice. And so thanks to our friends at the Tennessee Highway Safety Office, we were able to bring you, we'll have a 30-minute show at 1:30 tomorrow as well. And then on Monday, we'll also have a 30-minute show to kind of recap everything. Because as you said, David, 18 teams descending upon Chattanooga. That is a lot of football being played over the next 3 days. And we've already got one game final, which we'll get into in a minute. But a lot of great teams that have worked really hard to get here as well, kind of reaping those rewards Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Last year, I was fortunate enough to have one of the teams in my area, Easter Robertson, as you mentioned, descend on Finley Stadium in Chattanooga and compete for a state championship last year. The conditions looked so much better today for CPA and BGA. They had the sun shining last year. We had to navigate the rain on Championship Saturday, which forced me into the press box next to none other than Maurice Patton. But it was just a great atmosphere. And as you mentioned, anytime you have the talent on display for a state championship game, the games are always going to be fun, and that was the kind of the setting of the one earlier this morning.
Absolutely, and we will dive right into it. This was a game coming into it. Again, you're watching bonus coverage, Blue Cross Bowl coverage here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. David, they kicked things off. This was a game that, I think a lot of folks were pretty excited about. A lot of folks were highly anticipating. It was a rematch of a closely contested one between these two Nashville squads. But in some way, the inevitable kind of felt like it played out before us as CPA did defeat BGA this morning, 38-26 in a game that just went final about 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that CPA was going in as the heavy favorite, if you could say, trying to defend their Blue Cross Bowl championship from last year. And so you knew for BGA and Bobby Bentley, who, let's give them credit. They had a remarkable turnaround this year. He's in his first year there at BGA, and just the amount of points that they put up this year is pretty phenomenal. We knew for BGA that they were going to have to force some turnovers, find a way to get some short fields to have a shot in this ball game. And that recipe played out on the first play of the game, the opening kick. BGA recovers a fumble and is able to drive in for a touchdown. And you're thinking, man, BGA is going to have an opportunity here to stay close in this game. But as the game kind of wore on, we saw that CPA dominant offensive line and that rushing attack led by Rawls Patterson just kind of eat away at that BGA defense over the course of the game. But this is a matchup between two really good teams. Caden Marable, the BGA quarterback, is absolutely phenomenal. And Arnett Hayes, his trusty wide receiver on the outside, can make plays. So there's a lot of talent on the field, but just too much CPA in that dominant rushing attack.
Yeah, it was a tale of two styles, right? It felt like in many senses. And I'm fascinated your take on this too, because we've seen BGA, some teams and some programs, it takes a year, it takes a couple years, but you can kind of see them trending in the right direction. This kind of was an instant turnaround in terms of, hey, already in Chattanooga, already competing for a state championship. Bobby Bentley has that program flying. And you mentioned Caden Marable. He throws for over 350 yards. But in the end, that rushing attack, man, how about the numbers for your guy, Rawls Patterson? You just talked about how dominant. And he was a guy that got dinged up in the regular season meeting. But he goes for 27 carries, 336 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's a great season for some folks, David, but this guy had it in the state championship game here today.
Yeah, obviously his brothers, Kingston and Cade, I think, made the trip down. They both played at Vanderbilt, and Langston had to ask Coach Lee, "Can I get off practice and get out of bowl prep to come down and watch my brother play in the Brewcross Bowl?" And obviously, he rewarded him with that performance today. Joe Fisher said it best. I was listening to the tail end of the broadcast, and he said that performance right there deserves his own seat on the bus on the way back to Nashville. So, just what a performance! Obviously. He has a talented family, one of the youngest members of his family, and just the way he was running the football today, he was able to bounce out of plays and turn 5 to 10 yard gains into 20 to 30 yard gains, and he just showed that ability behind that offensive line just to make plays. But I'm glad you mentioned as well the BGA turnaround. As you mentioned, they throw the ball around the yard, and as you mentioned, it's a conflict of styles. And, we just saw that dominant rushing attack, BJ just couldn't get enough stops defensively against a really good offensive unit led by CPA, who kind of caps their presence here in Division II AA, and now will make the transition to D2 AAA next year. So they closed it out the right way.
Yeah, they depart, obviously, as a multi-time champ, and they kind of have ruled the yard for several years now. But to me, it's so fascinating to see the matchup the way that it did play out. Is BGA kind of is now – they have a chance, and I think a lot of folks were maybe anticipating some success this year, no doubt, and a turnaround this year, no doubt. But, man, you cannot help but be impressed with the effort that BGA put forth in a very first year of a new coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, Bobby Bentley, his resume speaks for itself. He has been coaching a long time, coached in high school ball in South Carolina, I believe, and then coached at the college ranks as well. And they showed you that they could put up points in a heartbeat. Their style is more college-esque, where they throw the ball around the yard, and they use Caden Marable's skill set this year. And Arnett Hayes, obviously, it seems like every play he's looking at him. And just the, CPA defense knew that they could key on Arnett Hayes, and obviously knowing that he's the number one weapon, and he still goes for over 200 yards receiving, 15 catches in a state championship game is pretty phenomenal itself. So those two are a very nice duo. And Bobby Bentley will continue to build on that. And, the things that he probably has in that offensive playbook, and when those players get more familiar with him, his style of play, it makes it really exciting about what BGA can become here in the next couple of years in the Bobby Bentley era over there, down there in the south end of Nashville.
Absolutely. They finished the year 11-3, 2 losses, 1 in the regular season, then obviously 1 today, 2 CPA. They did have a loss to Franklin Road Academy, which they avenged in the semifinals. So the future is bright if you're BGA, and if you're CPA, again, 14-0, state championship yet again, getting ready to make the transition. But what a great way to kickstart our Blue Cross Bowl coverage, because we saw an up-and-coming team who was still right there in the mix. This was a close game, especially in the first half. BGA makes a late field goal to cut it to a single-score game. But we saw kind of that dominance from CPA in the second half. So great way to start our Blue Cross Bowl coverage, and a great way to kick off our Thursday coverage here on Main Street Sports Today. On the other side of this timeout, we'll get you ready for game number 2, a game near and dear to our hearts here in Columbia. Columbia Academy is getting ready. Speaking of avenging losses, they will look to avenge a loss versus Nashville Christian. We've got boots on the ground. Mo Patton will join us from Finley Stadium here in just a matter of moments as we send it to a quick timeout. But a reminder, you are watching bonus Blue Cross Bowl coverage here at Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office, who reminds you that fans don't let fans drive drunk. David and I return right after this.
He shoots, and he scores!
Welcome back, folks. Bonus coverage of Main Street Sports Today, presented by Blue Cross Bowl coverage of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office, who reminds you that fans don't let fans Drives Drunk, alongside David Wilson, Wayne Neely saying hello. And we will be with you guys again tomorrow. Special start time, 1:30. We will break down everything that we saw today. And then we'll also get you ready for day 2 of the TSSAA state championships down in Chattanooga. And then Monday, Mo and I will also join you for a recap. If somehow, some way, some reason you missed any of the 9 games over the weekend, don't worry. You can come back Monday and we will break things down. Speaking of Mo Patton, he's going to join us here in just a matter of moments. But David, before Mo does hop in, let's quickly jump into number 2 on our docket today. We've got Nashville Christian versus Columbia Academy. We talked about the revenge factor. This should be another fantastic contest in the Division IIA Class A state championship game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest question I'm looking forward to talking to Mo is if you're Columbia Academy, obviously one of the first time you're being there in program history, how do you handle the emotions of the moment? I remember for East Robertson last year making their trip in the first time ever in school history in the Class 2A state championship game. The emotions and, the penalties kind of got the best of them at times, the jitters. Obviously, not being there before and playing on the grandest stage of high school football here in the state. So I'm interested to ask Mo about that. You mentioned the revenge factor as well. They have their hands full defensively, dealing with 5-star quarterback Jared Curtis, who is absolutely unbelievable. The size, the strength that he possesses, not only running the football, but throwing the football as well. He had a day against Columbia Academy back in Columbia several weeks ago. So the challenge that defense faces, stopping him and just kind of the emotions of them handling the moment. And, obviously an emotional setting where you're trying to make school history.
Yeah, you just kind of threw a lot right there, because it's one thing dealing with those emotions. It's another thing dealing with those emotions and facing a really good team with a sensational quarterback. On paper, that seems like a really daunting task for CA that they're about to face, does it not?
Yeah, it does. And I think the main thing is, if you're in that Bulldog locker room, is you have to handle what we can control, which is our emotions, our attitude, our preparation. If you take care of those things, everything else will kind of fall into its place. And I think you realize, 3 to 4 minutes into the game that you're still playing football, and, all the outside noise and the noise in the stands and the setting kind of drowns itself out. But it is a challenge. You're playing on a college field, a different setting that you would normally have. The stands are a little bit bigger. The stadium scoreboard is a little bigger. You feel the gravity of the moment. And so it's how do you handle those emotions? And then you just go play football and you worry about the task at hand of your assignments, your scheme, and how to slow down Jared Curtis. I don't think you're ever going to stop someone like that at the nature of the high school level. You can just hope to contain them and limit their production and try to make them uncomfortable as possible.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. You can't really fully eliminate the guy, but you can try and slow him down just a little bit. Talking with David Wilson here, who's going to be with us all afternoon. Hoping to link up with Mo Patton here in just a moment. Again, he's at Findlay. He's also getting ready for the game, so we'll be gracious whatever time we get with Mo here in just a second. David, you mentioned that. It's CA's first trip to the big dance in this sense. I drove through the streets of Columbia just a minute ago, and I can report there are still a few folks in town, but there are a lot of folks that have made the trip, and I think we have Mo standing in the green room, literally standing. It looks like he's down on the field in Chattanooga. Mark, if we can cue up our good buddy there from Chattanooga. Mo, good afternoon.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Sorry about that. I rarely use the StreamYard on my phone, and I neglected to click a button that I needed to click to get in. But sorry about that. Hope I didn't throw y'all off too greatly. But yeah, down here on the field, Columbia Academy just finished up their warm-ups, and they are heading back into the locker room for their final debriefing before this Division IIA championship game between the Bulldogs and Nashville Christian. So yeah. Got some relatively great weather, not as cold as I anticipated, which is always a good thing. Nice and sunny, dry. It's going to be some great conditions for a great ball game, hopefully.
Absolutely, and we appreciate you going through some efforts there to join us, Mo. And David and I were just going into this. You can't really eliminate Jared Curtis, but you can maybe slow him down just enough. I'm curious your take or your recipe if you're Columbia Academy to win this game today.
One, well, I think that recipe is twofold. One, I think your offense has to really be productive. You've got to try to hang on to the ball. Sometimes the best defense against a great offensive player like that is to keep him on the sidelines. And I think if they can, just kind of minimize the time that Jared Curtis is out there, that's going to help. But also, this defensive line, this defensive front for Columbia Academy has really been, they've been on a tear since that Nashville Christian loss back in week 8. And if they can get some pressure on him and maybe shorten up some possessions for Nashville Christian, maybe get a ball or two back, that kind of thing, every little bit along those lines helps. So if the defense can make him a little bit uncomfortable, but at the same time, you've got to be disciplined in your rush, because he also ran for 75 yards on 8 carries with 3 touchdowns in that 45-7 loss earlier in the year.
Yeah, Mo, you're styling and profiling with the sunglasses and the hat and the white jacket. Good to see you. I kind of talked about this with Wade. I lived this last year with East Robertson making their first trip to the Blue Cross Bowl and the emotions of that moment. How do you think Columbia Academy can handle that? Obviously, it's an emotional setting. You're in a bigger stadium, college stadium. You have your whole town out there trying to witness you make history. How do you think they handled the emotions and the gravity of that moment?
I really kind of think that's the X factor, David. Seth Anderson, who is within hearing distance of me right now, they have been so businesslike, particularly on this 5-game run since that loss to Nashville Christian. But I just don't know if you can simulate, like you said, the big stadium, the state championship game stage, that kind of thing. And you can't predict how they're going to react to it. But I do know that they have really been very even-keeled coming down this stretch here over this last 5 games, these last 3 playoff games. It's been very workmanlike. I mean, Wade has even said that on our Southern Middle Tennessee high school football show. They've just been very businesslike in the way that they have played here over this last few weeks. And if they can keep that, don't get too high, don't get too low type approach to things, that's going to put them in good shape as well.
Mo, I got to ask you, David and I were kind of teasing it right before you joined us. I love when schools kind of make their first ever trip, or I love when small towns kind of make their first ever trip to an event like this. Set the scene for us in terms of the crowd and vibe.
Obviously Columbia Academy is not a big school, but if you can kind of look over my shoulders there a little bit, they've got a nice little turnout over there in the visiting stands there. This is Nashville Christian's 4th state championship game appearance, I believe. And, the crowd isn't huge for them either. And, I don't know if that's a Thursday midday, a function of the time of the game and that kind of thing or what. But I will also say that BGA and CPA, the turnouts weren't overwhelming for that game that just wrapped up here a little bit ago either. So, it might be the midday effect on these crowds, and a lot of folks maybe couldn't necessarily get here, but the ones that didn't get here, and fortunately, it's available on television, it's available on radio and that kind of thing, and I'm sure a lot of people back in Columbia and Nashville and across the state are watching, but it's tough, for a lot of people to get here this time of day. But I think that the ones that do get here are going to get to see a great ball game.
Yeah, Mo, we kind of talked about this, just you and me personally. What are some keys to success for Columbia Academy offensively to try to put some points on the board against Nashville Christian and try to stay in this game that could potentially be a shootout?
The way Columbia Academy has scored over the course, again, over this 5-game win streak that they're on, they've averaged almost 47 points a game. So, they might feel like they are equipped to win in a shootout fashion, but at the same time that they have faced over this stretch. And I don't know, I'd be wary of getting into a shootout with a quarterback like a Jared Curtis.
Yeah, we certainly wish, I agree with both of you guys there. And Mo, we thank you for taking some time today. Enjoy the contest. We'll be watching on television. We'll be looking for you on the sideline, and we look forward to catching up with you tomorrow for a full recap.
Sounds good. You guys have a great show. We'll talk.
Thank you, Mo. Mo Patton joining us live from Finley Stadium. And David, you said it, man. He was styling and profiling. He was bundled up, but he was looking great while doing so, partner.
You know, Mo is always going to dress to impress. You know, he's the star of the show. He's the Hall of Famer himself. So he's styling and profiling Ric Flair. So, you know, he's going to make a scene and an entrance down there in Chattanooga for us.
He was looking good, and we hope that Columbia Academy and Nashville Christian both are looking good. That is game number 2 again on Division II day, if you will, as the Division II Single A Championship is moments away. Again, you can see that one. You can listen to it, or you can also come back tomorrow with us, and we'll have a full breakdown as we get you prepped with more Blue Cross Bowl coverage. Hey, speaking of which, we are going to take a quick timeout. When we close, David and I will return. We'll preview the final game of the night, and we'll also set the stage for the rest of the weekend with all of your schedule, all that and much, much more as bonus coverage of Main Street Sports Today, Blue Cross Bowl coverage of Main Street Sports Today comes your way right after this. We are presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office, who reminds you that fans don't let fans drive drunk.
He shoots, and he scores!
Welcome back, folks. Final segment here. Bonus coverage of Main Street Sports Today, presented as always by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office, who reminds you that fans don't let fans drive drunk. Once again, we will have our regular show. David is gracious enough to step in and fill in for Mo today after subbing for me a couple of times. So we come full circle, and we appreciate that. But full show, as always, at 2 o'clock today. Same script tomorrow. We'll go at 1:30. Mo will be joining us then, and Mo will join us at 2 for the regular show. And then on Monday, we will recap everything. 3 days worth of Blue Cross Bowl coverage, once again presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office, who reminds you that fans don't let fans drive drunk. David, real quick before we get out of here, we will have another game tonight. If you're not a fan of Division II Chattanooga private school football per se, you may not necessarily, you may not necessarily be intrigued by this. But if you're a fan of two really good high school football teams, you will be intrigued. Baylor and McCallie will meet yet again in that one to cap our Thursday coverage from down in Chattanooga.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching this game last year. This is a repeat of last year's Division II AAA state championship game. And the scene that unfolded in Chattanooga last year was absolutely phenomenal. Mike Keith was on the call for the broadcast, and I watched it on TV. And just the setting of both those Chattanooga-based schools turning out in their home city, the stadium seats were absolutely packed, and they displayed a marvelous game last year that McCallie ended up winning 34-28. It's going to be another fantastic game and another fantastic setting tonight. I would probably bet you, Wade, a lot of money that is going to be the most attended game of the weekend. Obviously, with those two teams being together in their hometown, and just obviously the history, the rivalry that presents itself, them kind of being on a collision course in a lot of our minds to get there to play for the state championship once again with all the Division I and college talent that they have on the field. It should be an absolutely fantastic and intriguing game tonight at Finley Stadium.
I agree. And while you were setting the stage there, I tried and I did find the box score from last year's game. You mentioned 34-28. The attendance part was not filled in, unfortunately, because I have heard that it was absolutely packed to the rafters. The only thing that might keep that number from being just as high is obviously it is a little cold, but also it is a repeat of last year's championship, and it's a rematch of this year. Maybe a little Baylor McCallie fatigue, the only thing that keeps fans away from that one tonight, I think.
Yeah, I mean, last year the storyline was great. Obviously, you had the rivalry of two schools in the same city battling for a state championship. You had two quarterbacks both committed to go to Vanderbilt. They had the storyline there as well. But, it should be a great matchup tonight. Obviously, two teams that don't like each other, that makes it even better. Obviously, Baylor's a really good football team, and they might have the inside edge in this one, but it's definitely must-watch TV if you're a lover of high school sports, a lover of the TSSAA, and just what a championship can do. The stands will be packed tonight, that's for sure. That's a great matchup that is box office worthy.
Ain't no doubt about that. It kicks off at 6 o'clock. We resume action tomorrow, David, at 10 a.m. It'll be Alcoa and Westview in the 3A title game. We're followed by South Pittsburgh and Mace. Two schools on complete opposite ends of the state going to get it on in the 2 o'clock 1A championship. The nightcap tomorrow night is Sevier County and Page. We roll into Saturday in the 4A title bout. It's Macon County versus Melrose, followed by Marion County and Milan in the 2A tilt. And then we close with 6A football, Oakland and Houston. As you mentioned earlier at the beginning of our coverage here today, you said we got 18 really great schools. We got 9 really great state championship games. I guess I am curious, David, what game jumps out to you? Which are you maybe most intrigued by heading into this weekend?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. There's a lot of great storylines. I'm a storyline kind of junkie. I look at that Westview Alcoa game. Westview obviously undefeated on the year. Freshman quarterback Graham Simpson, the younger brother of Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. What if he can do it? What if he can be the guy that dethrones Alcoa in their run in Class 3A and wins the state championship as a freshman quarterback for Westview? Just imagine that storyline and the gravity of the moment. Obviously, Alcoa is the big bad wolf of Class 3A, and them winning that would absolutely be phenomenal. And then anytime a team makes the trip to Chattanooga for the first time, we're living that today with Columbia Academy. I'm looking at Macon County playing in the 4A game on Saturday morning. Just the gravity in that moment. How many people from Lafayette are going to make the trip down to Chattanooga and take in that once-in-a-lifetime moment? And then I guess tertiary for me is Page. Can they finally get over the hump tomorrow night and win that elusive gold ball that has, kind of eluded the senior class? Eric Hazard, their linebacker at Louisville, is going to make his 60th career game tomorrow night. That's absolutely absurd at the high school level. But, their experience, they've been there before. But those are kind of the 3 on my pecking order. I would love to hear yours as well, though.
You just touch on it. And Page, I think, is the most intriguing to me. And, man, it could go one of 2 ways, right? If Page does close it out, then you have the storybook ending. Everything looks great. If they somehow don't close it out, and Sevier County is a great football team, it would not be a slight if Page did lose for any other reason other than the fact that it'd be Heartbreak City 4 years in a row. I think this was a one-off game or a one-off year. You could tip your cap to Sevier County and feel okay about it. But, man, after the season that Page has had, if they don't close it out tomorrow night for some reason, that's going to be so frustrating because it feels like this is maybe the best team or the best chance they've had thus far in 5A.
Yeah, absolutely. I watched them last week up close and personal when they went to Springfield. That defense is absolutely nasty. They're absurd. You have 3 Division I guys at the second and third level of your defense. That's pretty nuts at the high school football level. So Sevier County offensively will have its hands full. I mean, that Page defense has yet to allow more than 7 points to opponent all year. So I think that stat in itself, I'm like, are they going to give up more than 7 points this week? But if they cap that state championship, if they cap tomorrow, with the state championship and another defensive performance, I think you can make the case that that's one of the best teams in state history defensively as well.
I ain't no doubt about that. I'm well on that path as well. Giles County suffered the wrath of Page back in week 1. I witnessed it firsthand. They are a nasty defense, and that will be a lot of fun. Folks, we are right up at the top of the hour. That means it's time to cap today's edition, bonus coverage of the Blue Cross Bowl, presented as always by our friends at the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. If you missed any of it, you can go back and watch today, obviously, but tomorrow we will break down all 3 games and we'll preview the rest of the weekend. Bonus coverage all week long, kicking off at 1:30. But for now, it's time to get into the 2 o'clock show. Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia, is up next after this break. Once again, thanks to our friends at the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Blue Cross Bowl coverage is in the books for Thursday.
He shoots, and he scores!
What's up, folks? Welcome in to the Throwback Thursday edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented as always by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Wade Neely saying hello alongside our trusty colleague, Mr. David Wilson. If you are just tuning in, you missed about 30 minutes worth of bonus coverage on our Blue Cross Bowl coverage, including a hit from our good friend, Mr. Mo Patton, who is down at Finley Stadium in Chattanooga. He'll be there today and tomorrow. But for the next 2 hours, we are going to bring you our regular, our quote-unquote traditional Main Street Sports Today show. We come to you from the Lee Company studios. I'm here in Columbia. David is in Robertson County, I do believe. Is that correct?
Respective home today.
Respective home. Beautiful. Taking advantage of that. We love that. And that just means you're strapped in. You're in familiar territory, so you're ready to rock and roll today. And David, we touched on it at the start of our first show, the bonus show today, but thank you for joining us. And it's a bit of a role reversal. We come full circle. So I am in deep gratitude to you for the times you've subbed for me. Now you get to sub for Mo. You have a permanent spot in the Main Street Sports Today Guest Hall of Fame now.
Oh, I appreciate that. Anytime I can help out you two, obviously you guys are great colleagues. Love working with you guys. Anytime I can help out and lend my hand, I'm willing to do so. And, you can always reach me anytime.
Man, that is good to hear. And I'm excited that you are joining us. I'm excited that our viewers are with us today. Again, presented by TOA of Columbia. We got a big show, David, and we just got all ramped up. We're high school guys. And so, when they said, hey, let's do a bonus show about high school football, I think you and I both, were kind of foaming at the mouth a little bit. But we still got a big show on tap here today, kind of setting the stage on that. We're going to talk a little college football, as you might expect. Our good friend Chris Lee from Southeastern 16, he's going to join us here in about 15 minutes to break down the college football playoff bracket. But while we got him there, we're also going to talk about a little SEC hoops, as SEC kind of dominated in the SEC ACC challenge. And then we'll kind of get into the grab bag a little bit later in the show, talk a few odds and ends. I got a couple of topics, David. I know Mo and I discussed it yesterday, but I got to get your opinion on one baseball topic that is obviously making a lot of headlines, shall we say. Some golden headlines, perhaps, if you will, if you catch my drift there, partner.
And I'll say this, I'm not a fan, so we'll get into that.
Yeah, looking forward to that. We touched on it yesterday, but I wanted to, you're a baseball guy too, so I wanted to make sure I get your comments on that. So we will dip into that in the grab bag. Coming up at 3 o'clock today, we are going to be joined during Coach's Corner, presented by Tim Penn Alley, by Lawrence County boys basketball head coach Bryce Clifft. I've been told that Coach Clifft, he'll talk Lawrence County boys basketball, but he could talk anything. He might basically turn into a third host if we're not careful, is what I've been told today. So looking forward to catching up with him. It is Throwback Thursday coming up at 3:20. We will kick it back to our interview with Bob KESLING, the UT Vols legendary play-by-play announcer. We had a great discussion with him talking about his final few games as the play-by-play voice of the UT Vols. So you're going to want to stick around for that at 3:20. We'll close the show. We'll dip into the NFL circle. We'll talk about Thursday Night Football, big game in the league tonight as the Packers travel to Detroit. We'll get David's thoughts on that. We'll also talk an update on the Titans. There will be a new quarterback, almost undoubtedly, not for the Titans, but a team that they're playing against this weekend. So you're going to want to stick around for that as we get you capped there. David, I know you have been amped up. I know you've been ready to go, and we just did high school sports a minute ago. Can we do a little more high school sports? Are you up for that?
Let's do that.
Okay. All right. We're going to dip into that. We'll kick things off with a little more high school, and we'll do that by bringing you yesterday's scores and today's schedule. We'll do that, folks, on the Rundown.
This is the Rundown.
I'll start our rundown off, folks, with girls basketball scores from last night. There were a few, not many, but there were a few. I can tell you the Lipscomb Academy defeated Hillsboro 65-46. On the boys' side, it was Hume Fogg 67, Antioch 50. Lead Academy knocks off Clarksville Northwest 62-52. Women's college basketball from yesterday, North Texas downing TSU 83-65. It was MTSU defeating SIU Edwardsville 85-41. Vanderbilt taking care of Miami 88-70. It was Belmont 63, Lipscomb 55 in the UT Vols. The Lady Vols survived, blew a big lead from what I heard yesterday, but they do win it 79-77 versus Florida State. Quick men's scoreboard from last night. It was MTSU 103, Rhodes 55. Vanderbilt goes on the road and defeats Virginia Tech. Big win for the Commodores. More on them later, 80-64. And on the ice last night, it was not a good one for the Preds. They fall to the Maple Leafs. Oof, another tough one for Nashville, but they fall 3-2 in your hockey score from last night. That caps yesterday's scoreboard. Dave, take it away.
Yeah, high school football action, and we kicked off the Brew Crossball, as we mentioned earlier this morning at 11 a.m. Division II AA state championship, and it was CPA picking up their 7th overall state championship in their first undefeated season since 2018. They defeat BGA 38-26. We mentioned Rawls Patterson early, over 300 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns in that one for the Lions. Kicking off just right now, we'll have to check the score on this one. Columbia Academy and Nashville Christian in Division II Single A. And then the nightcap tonight down there in Chattanooga, it is Baylor versus McCallie in a good old-fashioned rivalry matchup tonight at Finley Stadium. Doubleheader basketball action tonight. Hampshire Agathos Classical tipping that one off, at 6 p.m. Mount Juliet Christian at Christian Community, 6 p.m. Tip there as well for the girls' game. Beach at Clarksville, 6 p.m. up there in Montgomery County. Harpeth making the trip over to the east side of town to Eazell Harding. Franklin Christian at Franklin Castle at 6 p.m. tip-off for the girls' matchup. Hendersonville making the trip over to Hunters Lane at 6 o'clock. East Nashville at Overton, 6 p.m. there. Battle Creek at Lawrence County. We'll talk to Lawrence County head basketball coach here just later on in the segment. Fairview at Lawson at 6 p.m. Valor Collegiate at Merle Hyde, 6 p.m. for the girls' action as well. Upperman at Oakland. Oakland should be a good one down there in Murfreesboro. Mount Juliet at Page, 6 p.m. Houston County at Stewart County, 6 p.m. Girls only tonight. Whites Creek at Martin Luther King, 6 p.m. tip there. And Clarksville Northeast at Portland, 6 p.m. tip there. And then the Lone Boys action tonight, Laverne at Franklin, 7:30 tip right there.
A couple other games to get into before we close things out. Men's basketball, this game's already listed as final. That was it. Joe Sullivan told us about this game yesterday. It was that school day game as Lipscomb defeated SEMO 78-60. Another score, we may touch on this in the grab bag, David, but UT Southern, their women's soccer team is in the NAIA National Tournament for something like 21 straight years. They're making the quarterfinals for 6 straight. They play Kaiser, which is a school out of Florida. That game kicks off at 6 p.m. You can see that one at utsfirehawks.com. It's a free web stream there. So that's a bonus edition there. A couple other ones real quick before we get out of here. Preds are at the Canadians tonight. Game gets underway at 6 o'clock. You can see it on FanDuel Sports South. Also on FanDuel Sports South at 7 p.m., the Grizzlies will look to shake off a loss they suffered a couple nights ago. They host the Kings tonight. Again, tip-off comes your way at 7 on FanDuel Sports South. Ladies and gentlemen, that is today's schedule. Those were yesterday's scores, and that concludes today's rundown. Top story presented, as always, by the fine folks at Piggly Wiggly over at Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check them out for your delicious daily deli lunch options, where everything is cost plus 10 at the cash register. Once again, shout out to Piggly Wiggly at Neely's Mill in Columbia, bringing you today's top story. And, you know, David, this may not be necessarily top story, but if you got $100,000 laying around, I guess it could be a top story. That was the amount. It was actually $102,000. Is that too much to bid on a game-worn pair of jerseys? That was what was sold yesterday. LeBron and Bronny James, the night that they made their infamous debut to start the NBA regular season, both of those jerseys were sold at an auction house for $102,000. And that simply begs the question, is that too much or is that too little in your mind?
Wade, you're talking to somebody who doesn't want to spend more than $10 to $15 to buy himself dinner or lunch. So $100,000 might be a little more of my outside of my taste range, but that's an historic moment. So obviously, if I'm being sensible, I can see why bidders and auctioneers would want to ask or give that price just for the gravity of that moment. First father-son duo in the NBA to play together. So I can understand that, but that's probably outside of my budget range. That's for sure.
It would definitely be outside of my budget range. Maybe if they get you go to those websites now, and it's like click here for installments. Can I do like a 20-year installment? I might be able to come up with something like that. But when I saw that number and we kind of thought about the moment, and we don't know if we'll see Bronny back in the NBA this season. We don't know if we'll see him back with LeBron ever again. I kind of found that figure, and again, it's not my money, so I can say whatever I want, I guess, but I thought that figure seemed kind of low, to your point, considering the moment, right?
Yeah, I have to go back and think about it, though. I do not think that Bronny scored in that game. I know he played against the Suns in that open. He did not score until he went actually back home to Cleveland when they went back to face the Cavs up in Northeast Ohio, excuse me. So I can see that maybe in the moment where they're both in the box score together, they both scored a point, how those jerseys might add up to something. But, Bronny didn't score in that game, so I can understand why the value might be a little different. But they did play together, so I could see your point as well.
Reading through this story here, I do find some other interesting items of note that were in the memorabilia realm. This article comes from The Athletic. Sotheby's sold a jersey worn by LeBron from the in-season tournament. It's now officially known as the Emirates NBA Cup, but last year when it was just a pedestrian in-season tournament, a semifinal win, his jersey netted $120,000. So I found that interesting. That the pair goes for less. And then also Bronny's Summer League debut jersey sold for nearly $40,000, $38.4 to be exact. So I did find it. I feel like the James family, not that they obviously benefit necessarily from this. I feel like they kind of got shortchanged a little bit considering LBJ's, not even the championship jersey, David, last year. The semifinal jersey goes for $120,000.
Right, and I'm surprised, to be honest with you, Wade, that the James family didn't keep those jerseys and had them framed or something like that. Obviously, LeBron is an historian of the game, one of the all-time greats. We won't debate who's 1 and 2. That might start some controversy here, but obviously he's an historian of the game, and so I would think that he would have kept those jerseys personally for himself, maybe hung it on the James family wall as a gravity of the moment. But it is what it is. But yeah, I would definitely consider just the significance of it, the father-son duo in the NBA. We've seen it in other sports, obviously, most notably Ken Griffey Jr. and Ken Griffey Sr. in baseball. But just the gravity moment, you think that would cost a little bit more coin than what it did.
I agree. And that's kind of what struck me also. It felt like LeBron, you summed it up best. I mean, he's a historian of the game. I would love to see his memorabilia wing because he's got some really cool items, not just of his own career, but others. And so I found that kind of interesting. And I guess, time will tell whether or not those guys get back together. Mo and I talked about the Lakers. They were beat again. They got beat pretty badly last night by the Heat. Don't know.
JJ Redick.
Yeah,
JJ Redick came out and said it was very embarrassing and, kind of questioned. And, I think you can get that. He's a former player. He's lived that moment. I think he can say some things maybe that, will be taken, lighter than what some coaches would say that didn't play the game or did not play at a high level. I think JJ has the respect of that locker room. And so I think he came out, it was pretty blunt with his team after their loss to the Heat last night, where they were really just kind of non-competitive from the jump.
Yeah, got pulled it up officially here. 134-93. I knew it was pretty lopsided, but man, that in the light of day, that seems even worse. Miami's pretty good, but we're talking about a Lakers team here, David, and Mo and I just broke this down a couple days ago. They've been a little friskier, I think, than maybe the real NBA diehards would have anticipated this year. At the end of the day, we're still talking about a team that's kind of in that middle/bottom tier of a really competitive Western Conference. But you made a great point also when you said that JJ does kind of command a different level of respect, probably maybe even a little more respect. And that's a great point, that he can kind of say some things that some other coaches probably wouldn't be able to get away with internally going forward.
Yeah, I mean, the upper tier talent of their roster, I mean, if you think about it, LeBron's about to be, 40 years old? He's still a top 5, top 10 player in the NBA right now. You combine him with Anthony Davis, who's one of the, the great talents of the game. It's always been, can he stay healthy and on the floor? You combine that with, a first-round pick. I mean, I know he slid into the middle of this first round, but Dalton Connects played really well for them. But it's just the surrounding pieces have not played up to their best. You ask, is that the pressure of playing with LeBron and knowing the gravity of his legacy and knowing that he's trying to go win that 5th championship? I don't know, but the surrounding parts have not played well. And then, to be fair, LeBron has not shot the ball, particularly from 3-point range, the last couple games very well either.
No, he certainly is not. And Mo and I talked about it too. He did get the 10 points, which did extend some crazy streak for him in the blowout loss to Minnesota the other day. But kind of as you pull up the Western Conference standings, I mean, they sit there at the 9 seed. The West is just so competitive right now. There's only a couple games that separate 2 from 10, really, at this point, and we're still obviously early in the season. I guess to kind of put a bow on our top story here. Do we see Bronny in the NBA again this season? Do we see him in the NBA again in your mind ever, I guess, at this point?
Yeah, I think they'll give him a shot again, just knowing who he is and what his dad is. He'll get that opportunity. Now, there's a lot of people, obviously, that debate, did he deserve the opportunity to begin with if his father was not LeBron James? Would he have been drafted to the NBA? But I think he will get a shot. I think he has certain skills defensively off that the Lakers could use. They need some talent, but I think they'll get a shot to play together again. I do, to answer your question.
Yeah, I think if nothing else, if LeBron definitely suits it up again next year, I feel like we kind of run the same script back where Bronny maybe has a decent summer league, makes the roster early, and then they say, not quite yet, and then maybe drop him back to the G League. I don't know, barring injury, if he gets back up to the big show this year.
Yeah, I think, Wade, the key is Bronny just needs to play basketball. You think about all that he suffered last year at USC, obviously suffered a heart attack. And, you're talking about things bigger than basketball right there. You're talking about life. And that's way more important. But that young man needs to play basketball. And he needs to get in, develop his skills. I didn't want to say get in shape, but develop his skills. Learn how to play within the system. We don't know his talent or his peak could be because he hasn't played enough basketball yet. Maybe he can get there, but he needs to play and develop. And, he's not doing that sitting on the Lakers bench. He needs to be in the G League playing. He needs to play in the Summer League, as you mentioned, next year to try to continue to get those minutes and, get better each and every day.
Absolutely. And this, I don't know why this popped in my brain. This is kind of a wild comparison, but kind of like what we see with the Colts and Anthony Richardson. This is a guy that just, or even Trey Lance, still with the Cowboys. This guy hadn't played a lot of games, and we think we have an idea of where these guys are, but we really don't know. And it's kind of the same with Bronny. It's too early to kind of tell. And, we've, myself included, we've kind of bagged on him a little bit because of the circumstances that he was kind of put in. But to your point, who knows? If he's committed to the craft and kind of gets better and improves, we still could be talking about an NBA caliber player.
Yeah, he has the genes, obviously, one of the all-time greats, a first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt. So, in the basketball IQ is there. Anytime you sit at the table with LeBron and, he knows the game of basketball. So, Bronny has that IQ. It's just, can he put it together? But he just needs to go out there and play and learn how to work within the system and do the things and work on the things, particularly with his shot that the Lakers need him to work on.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. Top story presented, as always, by our friends at Piggly Wiggly over at Neely's Mill in Columbia. Once again, be sure and check them out for your delicious daily lunch options where everything is cost plus 10 at the cash register. Top story courtesy of Piggly Wiggly at Neely's Mill in Columbia. When we come back, David and I will be joined by Chris Lee of Southeastern 16. We're going to talk SEC. We're going to talk college football playoff. We're also going to ask Chris at least 1 or 2 questions about how the heck the SEC clobbered the ACC in that basketball quote-unquote challenge over the last couple of nights. Chris will join us on the other side of this timeout. Reminder, come back right after this. You are watching Main Street Sports Today, where we are presented, as always, by TOA of Columbia.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Step into the Lionel retail store at Opry Mills, Nashville, and you'll be captivated by all the magic of the 123-year history of Lionel trains. Whether you're already a train enthusiast or just getting started, Lionel will energize your love for trains. NASCAR fan? Come check out your local Lionel station to learn all there is to know about model trains and die-cast NASCAR collectibles. Visit nashville.lionel.com or call 615-455-9399.
Well, we went all out for you this year, didn't we, little girl? Yep, we got you what you wanted with all the bells and whistles.
A brand new car?
Let's go check it out. Come on. We're here.
Oh my gosh, we're going to the garage. I got a car.
Yep, let's get in here. Let me show you what's going on.
Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Duggar, got your 18 SEER heat pump with your ultraviolet home treatment system.
I cannot believe it. Thank you.
Yes! Give the gift of clean air this year. Merry Christmas from the Busy Bee family.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
He shoots, and he scores!
Welcome back, folks. Throwback Thursday edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented as always by TOA of Columbia, rolling right along alongside David Wilson. Wayne Neely saying hello. We're inside the Lee Company studios here, bringing you another, again, Throwback Thursday. Coming up in the 3 o'clock hour, we will throw it back to our interview with the voice of the Vols, Bob KESLING, who's in his final season as the UT Vols play-by-play voice. Speaking of Tennessee, speaking of the SEC, it's time to kick it now to our good friend Chris Lee of Southeastern 16. We will talk all things SEC here on this Thursday afternoon. Chris, thank you for taking some time to join us at the 11th hour. Sorry for springing one on you this morning, partner, but we appreciate you as always.
Hey, I get a lot of these requests on the spur of the moment this time of the year. Seems like there's stuff people want to talk about.
You know, that is 100% true. And yeah, your inbox, I'm not necessarily envious of your inbox and your text message threads these days. So we appreciate you taking some time with us. We've kind of hashed out at least a little bit the playoff bracket, but in this final draft, as Mo coined it the other day, I am curious, what were your thoughts from the rankings and the bracket as it comes out Tuesday night?
I feel like the 12 teams that are going to get in are the 12 teams that I would probably put in. Now, the seeding, I'm not as sure about. And I think part of that is because I think they've got a flawed system set up. I think you're better off being in the 5 maybe than you are anything. I think when you go back to the drawing board, I would take away the top 4 seeds being conference champions. I think that's a big flaw in the system. I think it is going to cause some very uneven playoff matchups down the line. We actually did a video this morning about unpacking, like, what would that look like if all the favorites went out in championship week, and then you see the bracket this way, and how are they matched up, and the favorites win, what's that look like? And there was some really interesting stuff that came out of it. So I think the teams they have, I really feel like they've got the right teams. And I think Alabama's one of those right teams. It's the order that I think is a little, I don't know.
Little wonky. With that being said, I think a lot of folks, the anti-Alabama fans, if you will, or the anti-establishment fans, if you will, certainly groaned when they see Alabama. And I kind of want to phrase that question, but in a different way. Is Alabama the right team? Or I guess make the argument or make the case for me why Ole Miss and South Carolina just could not be included in this field over Alabama in your mind.
I've got a system that I put together, and it's just me thinking out loud of how would I put together a system, rewarding you for what you won and rewarding you, penalizing you for what you lost, but penalizing you and rewarding you accordingly. Like if you beat a nobody, you get rewarded about that much. If you beat somebody, you get rewarded that much. If you beat them on the road, you rewarded a little bit more, and so on. If you lost to a national title contender on the road, there's a penalty, but it's not much of one. And I just said, all right, let's throw this out there. Let's weight it 60% to resume, and then let's do 40% just general strength of team. Call it the eye test. And it's all based on power rankings that other people do that are pretty mainstream. In other words, the goal was like, let's keep it as unbiased as possible and see what it spits out. It had Alabama the number 7 team in the system. And I think that speaks a lot to the strength of teams that it beat. I think it speaks a lot to the games that it lost. Under Vanderbilt wasn't a great loss. Oklahoma wasn't a great loss. But there's some teams that had worse losses. Probably Ole Miss losing to Kentucky at home being one. That's a lot of words, and I'm sorry for that all to say. I tried to look at it pragmatically through that lens of saying, let's just kind of create something on my own and see if it agrees with what the playoff committee says. The one other thing I didn't agree with, I think Boise's too high, and I think that's going to cause some issues in the seeding. I think whoever wins the Big 12 probably ought to have that other spot other than Boise. But all that I guess that's a long way to saying I didn't have a big issue with what they did putting Alabama in there. I could even make the case that Alabama, based on its wins, could be higher.
Chris, I'm going to keep these things in the SEC really quickly. I know a lot of Tennessee fans were hopeful after Ohio State's loss in the horseshoe to Michigan that they could somehow creep up to the scenario where they could be hosting a home playoff game at Neyland. Obviously, on this past Tuesday night, that was not the case in the rough draft or the final draft, as Mo likes to coin it. They would be going to the horseshoe to play Ohio State. Do you think there's any chance that Tennessee could get to that position where they could have a home game? And then how would you kind of favor them in that matchup if they do have to play Ohio State in an 8-9 matchup?
Yeah, it sounds like the committee has sort of ruled that out. I think it said in so many words. I didn't hear it. I'm just reading what was written about it afterwards. I was out coaching a basketball practice when the committee made its announcements. But, yeah, I mean, it sounds like they're not going to just move teams around without a game being played. So if A is ahead of B and neither of them play, A is going to still be ahead of B following, when the last poll comes out. So to me, it doesn't seem like Tennessee is going to move out of that road game slot. BetOnline's already got Ohio State as a 7.5-point favorite in that matchup. The model I put together has it close to 7, so I think that's what you're looking at.
Yeah, and then I'm glad you mentioned it. Being the 5 seed, potentially it could be the most coveted position right now. Playing the 12 and then going to play the 4, which would be Arizona State the 12, Boise being the 4 right now, and they have Penn State right now at 5. Obviously welcoming in potentially a warm weather climate team to Happy Valley in the middle of December, then potentially playing Boise State. I guess my question is this: is there any way that you could see Notre Dame or maybe potentially moving up that spot for Penn State if they somehow lose to Oregon in that Big Ten championship?
Man, that's a really astute question, because with the thing we did this morning, I spent a lot of time talking about that, because if you just penalize Penn State a little bit for a loss, then Notre Dame can take that 5 spot. I think the difference between 5 and 6 is massive potentially. Notre Dame, like if you put Notre Dame in that spot against Arizona State at home, they're about a 17-point favorite, I think, which is a lot. You put Penn State there, it's probably more like 14. And then again, the winner gets Boise, which is easily going to be the weakest of the 4 teams that you get in the quarterfinals. I think it's going to be really interesting to see, if Penn State loses by a point, then maybe they don't really drop much at all. Maybe they don't drop below Notre Dame. But if I'm Notre Dame, I'm watching with a lot of interest how that one goes, because I think that the differences, where there's real differences in the seeding, in my mind, it's between 5 and 6, because you get that 4 and you get that easier 12 seed in the first matchup, which is a lot easier than playing the 11. And then between 8 and 9, because one's playing home, one's playing on the road.
Chris, I got to ask you, obviously it's within the possibility because we've seen it happen already this year, but what happens with Georgia if they win this week? How high? I mean, I heard somebody even floating, there's no shot Georgia ascends all the way up to like number 1, is there? I'm curious what happens with them if they win, especially convincingly on Saturday.
No, I think the Big Ten gets the 1. It's either an undefeated Oregon team at that point, or it's a 1-loss Penn State team. Georgia's got 3 losses. Can't see them getting there. Is Georgia going to be ahead of Boise? Of course. Is Georgia going to be ahead of SMU? I guess it already is. So to me, it feels like the winner of the SEC gets the 2 regardless.
So they seemingly are locked in, and I guess you answered another question too. It feels like Penn State, in a weird way, feels like this unknown, I think, to a lot of teams or a lot of fans across the country, that maybe they only tuned into the Ohio State game, but it sounds like if they beat Oregon, who's obviously the lone undefeated team, it feels like in your mind they slide up to the number 1 spot. Assuming if Texas wins, do they jump to number 1, I guess, is a question.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. If Penn State wins and Texas wins, I think Texas does get the 1. But what was the other part of your question? I'm sorry. You had my head spinning in thought here.
Well, I guess I'm just trying to envision. I'm like you. I'm kind of trying to envision all these scenarios, because when I saw the spreads for all the games this weekend, I kind of was a little bit surprised that a lot of them were very narrow. And I guess maybe I shouldn't be surprised because they are championship games after all. But it feels like this weekend, I thought I had a grasp on who was going to win some of these games. Then the lines were a little smaller than I maybe anticipated.
Yeah, I think that's indicative of where we are in college football. I just think there's a lot of parity. I think I've said it on your show before. I'm not really that shocked. Again, the disparity is going to be between, who draws Boise State and then who draws another conference champion or an at-large SEC. I think that's where the discrepancies really come in. Other than that, there's as much parity in college football at the top as I remember in a while. And man, I don't know how many teams can win this thing, but it's probably 9 or 10.
Yeah, of all the years it feels like to have a 12-team playoff, this is kind of the one year as a fan or a neutral observer. Yeah. It seems like you don't know what to expect. I've kind of followed the betting odds on the title all year long, and it feels like even Vegas doesn't necessarily know who to make the favorite at this point.
Well, it was interesting before the season, the power rankings people had Georgia a good 4 to 5 points ahead of the field. Georgia's sitting here like at number 5 in the composite power rankings that I put together, which indicates they're a good team and a contender, but not a runaway team. The top 2 teams in what I put together are Ohio State and Texas. There's a 1/10 of a point difference between those 2 teams. Notre Dame's a point behind those teams. I just think that's the world we live in. I think it's a lot of fun, not knowing what's going to happen next, not being at the point of the season where it's like, okay, all these championship games, one team's favored by 17 over another. Even in the SEC, we've seen games that we knew were going to be blowouts before we even played. I think that's the fun of it this year, is you're seeing that reflected in the point spreads, and I think it's indicative of what we've seen all season.
Chris, last football-related question for me before we talk some hoops. Do you really consider the ACC a one big league here, where the winner of the ACC championship game is going to be the lone wolf in the dance, or do you see a scenario where if SMU loses close to Clemson, they find a way to stay in the top 12?
Yeah, I think other than maybe how does winning and losing affect the seeding jockeying, especially for Penn State, I think that's the only thing that's of real interest on championship weekend in terms of bracket ramifications, because let's say SMU loses in 5 overtimes. Is there pressure on the committee to give the ACC 2 bids, one, of course, being Clemson, in a way that's easier maybe than the criticism you get deciding between Alabama, Miami, whoever's next? Although I feel like the committee kind of got out ahead of that this week by preparing people for it. Doesn't mean people aren't going to complain anyway. But that's the one thing I'm watching. And it might depend on how close those are. But to me, I still think SMU didn't do a lot during the regular season, didn't rack up a lot of good wins. You start comparing SMU's to Alabama's, and there's really not a comparison. So I think in that case, 2 losses versus 3 losses would seem to favor Alabama. But I'm also not the guy making the decision.
Yeah, and I've said it multiple times. I'm glad I'm not the decision maker this year, because there's a whole heap of unknowns to hash through. We're talking with Chris Lee of Southeastern 16. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Chris Lee 70. Chris, David kind of teased it there. They called it that SEC ACC challenge, but when we look at the final results, not much of a challenge. What did you take away from the 16 games that were lopsided as could be, 14-2 in favor of the SEC on the hardwood?
Yeah, and it wasn't just the record. It was 11 of those 14 wins were double digits.
Yeah,
that's bananas. I mean, if you want to find some tarnish on what happened, it's the fact that maybe 2 of the league's best 3 teams lost. Of course, Auburn lost in Cameron Indoor, where really nobody much wins there. And then Kentucky lost a nail biter too. But most shame in that one either. That was at Clemson. Clemson, I think, just matched up really well with them. But man, other than that, and I know people aren't going to talk about this one a lot, but what Mississippi State did to Pitt last night, my goodness, Pitt was a top 10 team in the net, and they beat them by 30-something points. I think
90-57.
Yeah, Mississippi State jumped last night from 28 in Ken Palm to 12. It is – you almost never see a jump like that at this point of the season. That's how dominant that win was. I think that's the one that probably doesn't get a lot of talk. But when I saw what those guys did to Pitt, that one really opened my eyes.
Yeah, Chris, obviously this is the first time we've talked basketball together. We talked a lot of football. I think this is just an overarching question for me. 9 games into the Mark Byington era at Vanderbilt, obviously they picked up a really big win last night on the road at Virginia Tech. What do you make of the job that he's done so far, and what kind of do you make of that Vanderbilt roster so far?
I think he's done a terrific job. I mean, they're 1 win away from, I think, tying last year's mark already. They'll be there before Christmas. Probably beat it before Christmas. I think that's remarkable. I think, he's doing it with 1 returning scholarship player. They weren't exactly coming at it from a position of strength. When you lose that many guys on your roster and your brand's been that tarnished, I think it's a team that's limited. I think teams that have got some beef inside, there's going to be some nights that's not pretty, but they've got 4 legit ball handlers. They've got a freshman in Tyler Tanner. I don't know how much people are talking about him, but that kid's played in the neighborhood of 180 minutes of college basketball. He's got, 18 assists and 21 steals and no turnovers. That's incredible for anybody, much less a freshman. They've got A.J. Hogard, who's debatably their best player, if it's not Jason Edwards, who had, 16 in the second half last night and can really hit some circus shots at times. I really like what they've done with those guys with Grant Huffman, who's been a good defender. He's got a lot of pieces that are really good pieces. I think their fatal flaw is going to be in the post. I'm a little worried about Devin McLaughlin, who sat out a lot of the second half last night. He got banged up in the tournament a couple of weeks ago, didn't play the second half against Drake. I think they really paid the price because when he's out, it's really dire. It's Jalen Carey and J.Q. Roberts, and they're just not guys you want as your 1 and 2 post players in this league. They're fine as depth pieces. They're not as good when they have to go center stage. So I think keep an eye on that. I think it's a team that's going to run into some limitations on given nights with teams that can just pound you inside. But I think the way that he's pulled this together, he's made it a fun team, an exciting team. And they're going to win their share of games, especially nights where the threes are falling for them, which really hasn't happened for the most part. They're going to be able to beat a lot of teams on a given night.
It's been fun to watch them thus far. There's no doubt. And Chris, this has been my catchphrase or buzzword lately, but at what point do Vanderbilt fans kind of change their calculus or expectations? When do they dare to dream for this season? We talked with Joe Sullivan earlier this week, and, their recipe as far as an NCAA tournament bid almost seems pretty clear-cut. Win the handful of non-cons you got left and maybe go 500 in the league and maybe staring at a bid already. I guess I'm curious, at what point do Vanderbilt fans really start dreaming, or are they already there in your mind?
I haven't given that a lot of thought specifically, but just looking at the schedule, I'll give you – let me just take your scenario that you've outlined there. If they run the table in their non-conference schedule and they go 500 in the league, there's not going to be any debate on Selection Sunday. They're in, and they might be in as a – who knows, a 6 or a 7 at that point. To me, it becomes – man, look at the net rankings this morning, guys. I don't know if you perused them today. It's 5 or 6 of the top 10 in the net or SEC teams. You've got another 3 or 4 that are top 25. Just about the whole league other than Vandy and South Carolina, which I think Vandy's in the low 60s now, are all top 50 teams. Once you're in that range, you're absolutely NCAA tournament caliber. I think the bigger thing is just, can they survive the season, right? Can McLaughlin stay healthy? Can they not just get abused inside? I don't know. You get 18 games. You went out in the non-conference schedule. 7-11 may be good enough with the way this league looks. I haven't done the math on all that, but the league is so good. I'm almost positive that there's going to be multiple teams that get in under 500. It's just how far it is. And really, honestly, they don't look at conference record, right? They've never really, if you look closely at their criteria, conference record is not a criteria. Now, it is part of your overall record. Mm-hmm. So if you take a bunch of losses in the conference, it shows up there. But I don't know. I'm going to be interested to see how that plays out because the computers that they're going to be looking at love this league more than any other league, and it's not even close.
Yeah, they have the SEC, I think, as fans and observers, we've noticed it, but then obviously you pair it with what we saw the last 2 nights. It has been remarkable to see. They are pounding teams. Tennessee, obviously, number 1 in a lot of your metrics, if not all of them at this point. So the league continues to dominate. Chris Lee of Southeastern 16 joining us. Chris, we appreciate your wisdom, your bracketology, if you will, on the football side of things, but you also gave a little bonus taste with basketball there, so we appreciate that as well, my friend.
Yeah, and we're doing basketball about 5 to 6 days a week at Southeastern 16. So if you're looking for your fix there, we spend about an hour talking about it every weekday.
Awesome stuff. Chris, thank you so much for your time. As always, we will see you down the road real soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks to Chris Lee again, Southeastern 16. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Chris Lee 70. Dave, you made a great point. I mean, Vanderbilt, I think even for the most diehard of Vanderbilt fans, they came into this season, I'm not real sure. I'm just going to be a little cautious. If I'm a Vanderbilt fan, I got to be excited with what I've seen thus far.
Yeah, absolutely. Their backcourt's phenomenal. Chris mentioned AJ Hogard, Tyler Tanner, the local kid from Brentwood Academy, Jason Edwards is just a natural scorer. So they're exciting. And I think that's what Vanderbilt fans have been looking for, is something to put their butts in the seats and, have an offensive explosion night in and night out. But Wade, you mentioned it. The SEC is just so tough. I mean, Tennessee is going to wake up next week the #1 team in the country, and they might not even be the best team in the SEC. That Auburn team, I watched them last night. They're still really good. Alabama put it on North Carolina the other day. So the SEC, top to bottom, Kentucky's got a good team. Florida's got a good team. So top to bottom, the SEC is one of the most talented leagues in college basketball.
It feels like it's going to be one of those meat grinder type seasons where, yeah, your champ may have a couple losses, but that's not necessarily a slight on them. That just means they were able to withstand. I love what Chris said kind of about just surviving a little bit. I think attrition is going to be huge on that. So we will keep our eyes on the SEC, especially on the hardwood, as that league will get ready to be a phenom. But we saw a taste of it the last 2 nights. Again, 14-2 in the SEC ACC Challenge. Stay tuned for more updates on that. When we come back, David and I are going to dip into the grab bag. Should be fun. We got some good, we got some bad, but most importantly, we're going to ask David what he thinks about the golden at bat. He gave a little spoiler earlier, but you're going to want to stick around for this. We'll tap into the grab bag on the other side of this timeout. You're watching Main Street Sports Today, where we are presented as always by TOA of Columbia.
You wanna be a bad man? Yes, you do. Do you wanna taste sweet salvation underneath the summer moon? Do you need another hand now? Yes, you do. Go see Miss Josie down on Columbus Avenue. All right, Columbus Avenue.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
So Busy Bee is a very close-knit family. We fight just like every family does. We have arguments, but we always come out with a solution to the problems. We don't just fight about what we want, we fight about what customers need. We want to make sure that every customer we go to is more than satisfied. And that doesn't just start whenever we show up at their door, that starts when we show up every day at work. We want to make sure that we are serving our customers to the best of our ability.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Welcome back, gang. Main Street Sports Today, presented as always by TOA of Columbia. Wayne Neely here, David Wilson there. We come to you from the Lee Company Studios. Quick scoreboard update. We kicked off our show at 1:30. We'll do it again tomorrow with bonus coverage of the Blue Cross Bowl. That is presented by our friends at the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. And David, I glanced over at the television here at the studios, and I saw the jerseys, kind of the navy and red. And I saw him going into the end zone. I said, oh, man, Columbia Academy has just punched it in, not once but twice. But they kind of pulled the switcheroo, and Columbia's in white today. So it's Nashville Christian who's up 14-0 over CA early in this one.
Yeah, I hopped out of my computer room really quick to go look at the TV during the commercial break. And I saw Jared Curtis throwing a trick pass for a 2-point conversion. So that seems kind of like the way it's been going for Columbia Academy so far, trailing 14-0. And, Wade, we kind of mentioned this, is can you settle in the emotions of this moment? Anytime you go into a high-stakes game like that, the emotions sometimes get the best of you. Can you find a way to rally, trailing by 14 and not hit that panic button and just continue to play your brand of football, try to get on schedule and try to get one first down at a time and then try to slowly work your way back into the football game?
We'll keep tabs on that one as the show continues. But again, it's 14-0 Nashville Christian. Monte Baldwin with 10 carries for 51 yards thus far for Columbia Academy. Time now for the grab bag here. And we got a couple different topics to get into. We'll be brief because we don't like to belabor bad news. But David, the Preds fell again last night. Mo and I touched it yesterday. It was going to be a tough task to go into Toronto and defeat one of the top teams in the NHL in the Leafs. The Preds did not do that. We opened up with the rundown. They fell 3-2. But things kind of bad to worse. The Nashville at this point in the season, just a couple weeks before the end of the calendar year, they're still only 2 points out of the complete cellar in the NHL, just barely above Chicago in the standings right now.
Right. The couple times I've been on here with Mo, we've talked Preds in depth for a while for a couple of segments. And, you just asked this question, when are they ever going to turn this thing around? The talent that is on this roster is too good for this team to be in this position. I don't think any Predators fan, any sports writer, anybody who does the profession that we live in would imagine with the additions that they made in free agency this summer that we'll be in the first week of December and this team will be near the basement of the NHL standings. That would have been a shock to most of us. We would have thought some injury had occurred or, they were missing some of their star players. And that's just not the case. This team is just not gelled this year. They have not found that continuity. And you just make yourself ask that question, well, what do they do to fix it? Coach Burnett is just in his second year here. Is that too early to pull the trigger, so to speak, if you want to make a coaching change? So I know, Wade, you know more about, the Predators in that nature compared to I do, but I think you do ask those questions internally and externally as how do we fix these things if the talent is there?
Yeah. The only thing, David, I'm an eternal optimist. The only good thing is you mentioned they got a lot of talent. And so if they turn the switch, they turn the corner, so to speak, they have that to back it up. So it's not as if they are just scrapping by with pieces from the scrap heap. So if they turn it around, they do have some pieces. They could go on a run, but they're running out of time, which is kind of scary to think about considering we're not even fully to Christmas yet. All right, I mentioned this at the start of the show. There's no other way to get around it, David. Go off on the golden at bat for me here. Mo and I broke it down yesterday, but I'm curious your take on a proposed, emphasis on proposed, rule change at Major League Baseball.
Yeah, Wade, I just don't think it's baseball. I think the thing that I loved about baseball the most is, obviously I played it the majority of my life is in baseball. It's the ultimate team sport where, you have to rely on 1 through 9, right? You're not always going to have your best hitter at the plate in those scenarios where this rule is now proposing where you can change that. You've had to rely on the strength of your roster 1 through 26. And I think this, change just kind of upsets the apple cart of the senses. And I get it. I get that you're always trying to tweak things and try to improve the game. I just don't know if this improves it in that fashion. I know you as an Astros fan would love to see Jordan step to the plate or
It
Cal
would be
Tucker
fun.
step to the plate with the bases loaded. But, I think that upsets the apple cart of baseball, and I don't think that's good for the game that, in a pinch, you can maybe have the guy who just struck out go back up there again in that moment.
And that's the only, obviously if they decide to do it, I mean, we'll kind of hem and haw and we'll just watch and, be subjected to it. But there are some logistical things that kind of go into this too, right? Because, I mean, I heard somebody throw this scenario out. I mean, there have to be a few parameters put into place.
Yeah, what if your guy's on base?
Right. I mean, somebody joked, but I mean, you don't go ghost runner, as nostalgic as that would be for, our youth and everything. But even this, it just kind of feels like they just threw out this PR trial balloon just to gauge some reaction and make it seem like they were thinking of this cool, hip idea without really thinking it through all the way.
Yeah, and I mean, I just thought about this, and this might be a silly question, but does this kind of eliminate the intentional walk? Because you could just point that guy, if you're the opposing manager that wants the golden bat, you can point him right back to the batter's box and ask him to hit again. I could see where, you intentionally walk Shohei Ohtani, and Dave Roberts is going to say, no, he's going to have this at bat in this spot, whether you like it or not. So it just changes the apple cart of the game. I don't think it's good for it. I think baseball, I'm all for you might disagree with me. I'm all for ABS. I'm all for trying to get the strike zone the right way. I'm not for particularly robot umpires, but I think there should be a challenge system in place. I'm all for that advancing of the game. I'm all for instant replay and then the challenges and the advancements that they've done. But I feel like this takes away from baseball and just presents a different scenario.
I agree. I think it's just almost a bridge too far. I'm kind of in a crossroads where I still consider myself kind of a baseball purist, but at the same time, I do realize the game kind of needs to evolve a little bit to continue kind of, I guess, that new generation. But I don't know, just something about this just seems a little off. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it doesn't seem like a great decision. Like I said with Mo yesterday, it feels like Manfred is just throwing this out there to seem kind of like he's being a little progressive, being a little hip, but deep down, I don't know that anybody really, really wants this.
I'll say this. I think Rob Manfred's legacy is going to depend on if we have expansion before his term is up. I think that's the thing that he could do to set his legacy in place. Or maybe it's ABS. Maybe it's the challenge system and bringing that to Major League Baseball. Obviously, they have tried that in the minor leagues, but I think that's a different way for him to go to kind of continue to put his stamp and leave his mark on baseball. I don't think the golden at bat is that way at all.
Yeah, and it would go is expanding the game literally. New franchises, new markets would certainly go a lot further for his legacy. That is a great point, David. Real quick before we get to the top of the hour, I got to ask you, how familiar are you with NAI women's soccer?
I am not, but I know you are.
Well, only reason I asked that is we do got to give a little quick shout out. We did mention it during the rundown, but the UT Southern women's soccer team, who has made 21 consecutive NAI national tournaments, winning it all in 2005, 2007, and again in 2021. They are in the the quarterfinals for a 6th straight season. And so I wanted to at least acknowledge that. They get ready to play Kaiser University tonight. So if you are, it is Thursday, and we'll get into Thursday night football in our second hour. But if you're perusing and you're really hunting for something to watch tonight, David, I just wanted to at least point out that you got some NAI National Championship soccer at your disposal, should you so choose this evening.
Right, with local interests, and obviously the resume speaks for itself. You just listed it out. Anytime you've been there before, it's a history, it's a culture, it's the pedigree. So obviously, I'm looking forward to hearing how those young ladies and those young women do here in the postseason.
We will keep tabs on that. That game kicks off at 6:00. That's down in Pensacola, Florida. They defeated.
I bet you they have nice weather compared to we do. It's a little cold here in Nashville.
Yeah, it's certainly a little warmer there than it is here. Not a ton warmer, though, 60 degrees. But 60 degrees sounds about 90 degrees where we sit.
Must be nice.
Yeah, must be nice, right? So shout out to UT Southern Women's Soccer. They defeated the Masters University, which is out of California, at home in the second round of the national tournament. back on November 23rd. And then Tuesday night, they defeated Aquinas College out of Michigan in the round of 16. So again, they are in the quarterfinals, which comes your way tonight at 6 o'clock. UTSFirehawks.com if you want to check out stats or video there. That brings us to the top of the hour. We are going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we will kick off hour number 2. Got a lot to get into in hour number 2, but we will begin with Coach's Corner. We're excited to chat with Bryce Clift. He is the second-year boys basketball coach at Lawrence County High School. Bryce is going to sit down and join us, talk about the Wildcats and their start to this season, but also talk about, I hate to say this, Dave, but district basketball is right around the corner. We've been going at it hard, but we got big games coming up right around the corner here. So we will talk with.
It goes by so fast.
It flies by. So we'll talk with Bryce about that coming up. That's all part of the second hour of Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia. David and I return right after this. We'll see you in just a moment for hour number 2.
Nashville's Nutcracker returns to TPAC this December, presented by Nashville Ballet. This holiday season, audiences will journey with Clara and the Nutcracker Prince through Nashville's history and the land of sweets. Tickets at NashvilleBallet.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Vilay Saisuka, CEO and founder of Premier Foot and Ankle Centers of Tennessee here in Murfreesboro. We offer foot and ankle care from ingrown toenails to diabetic foot wounds. We also fix ankle fractures and things like that.
Call us today to schedule an appointment. We look forward to seeing you.
Because here at Premier Foot and Ankle, we believe that
the journey begins with happy feet.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Hour number 2 of Main Street Sports Today, presented as always by TOA of Columbia, kicks off right now. Brought to you from the Lee Company studios. Wade Neely saying hello, alongside Mr. David Wilson, who is joining us. Maurice Patton will return tomorrow. He is field level, literally. We checked in with him earlier. He's down at Finley Stadium, where we can now report Nashville Christian's lead is just 14-7 versus Columbia Academy. Mo will have coverage of that game at mainstreetmurray.com. Mo will return to the program tomorrow. So looking forward to getting his take. Columbia Academy might be driving for a game-tying touchdown. We'll have an update on that as the second hour continues. But as promised a moment ago, it is time to kick off hour number 2, and we tap into Coach's Corner, which is presented by our friends at 10 Pin Alley, Eat, Play, Party. Coach's Corner, we didn't go very far, but we did dabble outside of Murray County a little bit. We had to tip on into Lawrence County to catch up with our good friend. He is the Lawrence County boys basketball head coach. He is Mr. Bryce Clift. Coach, thank you for taking some time, especially on short notice, to join us here today. Good to see you, my friend. We got you muted, Coach. Still muted, but we'll get him in here in just a minute. As producer Mark working some magic behind the scenes. Mark Rogers, our producer here. And David, we'll get Coach Clift in here in just a minute, but it's worth mentioning. I know we're going to talk about this season, and I know coaches don't want to live in the past, but Lawrence County had such a fantastic year last year. I think kind of rechanging the program narrative there is Coach Clift, you with us now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We got you. And thank you for taking some time and battling through some technology issues there. It's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Hey, listen, I'm sitting at my desk at school, and I pulled out a camera out of the box that I've never used before, and it's just one of those things that. So, am I too close to it? Something's messing up. Sorry.
No, you're great, Coach. You're fine right there, and we appreciate you taking some extra effort to be with us here on Coach's Corner, again, presented by 10 Pin Alley, Eat, Play, Party. And, Coach, I was kind of setting it up a moment ago. I know it's a new season, and we'll talk about this year, but real quick, kind of just tell us how we got here, because you guys had such a magical run kind of in your first rodeo at Lawrence County, and kind of maybe, dare I say, you kind of changed or recalibrated the expectations of the bunch over there in Lawrence County last year.
Hey, listen, when I took the job as head coach last year, I mean, I knew what I was walking into. You know, I obviously from Lawrence County, was assistant coach here for 4 or 5 years before getting the head coaching job, and almost everybody around knew that we were going to be really good. And really, like, the only expectation was me to not somehow mess it up. We were going to be really talented, and I knew going in that season, we hadn't been to sub-state in several years, but I knew that if we just did what we were supposed to, that there was a good chance for us to make some noise. And we had some highs and lows in the season. We ended up with a pretty good record, but we really hit our stride come tournament time. And we was playing some good teams, and we were playing good basketball. It was one of those things that it all worked out for us. We did what we could have done. We could have done more. I don't know if you remember that sub-state game, up 15 maybe or so in the first half, and kind of let it slip away from us. And that I still to this day have not went back and watched that game. I don't know that I will be able to.
We can do without Red Bank memories, I suppose.
Hey, credit to Red Bank, though. I mean, last year we were so talented, but we only played like 7 or 8 guys, and they just kept rotating guys in, and they just wore us down, and we made some mistakes at the end that I think it was because we couldn't play enough guys. But that is definitely a game that is hard for me to think about.
Absolutely. And Bryce, kind of having said that, I witnessed a similar deal with Giles County a couple years ago as their play-by-play guy. What's it like? You have such a great year in your first season. Giles County goes to the state tournament in their first year under Nick Campbell. And then what's it like now after such a successful year in your first rodeo, having to kind of really dial in for year 2 and kind of walk us through that process?
Well, first of all, was that not one of the greatest game atmospheres you've ever been to, that Giles County sub-state game, that Nick's first year? I mean, I traveled over there, and I just remember, man.
City and overtime, partner. Yeah.
Man. And that was a great Giles County team. I got videos on my phone. I mean, obviously, Nick's a good friend of mine, but I didn't have anything other. I didn't have any game, any tie in the game. But that was one of the most fun games I've ever been around. Was that sub-state game at Giles County Nick's first year. But like I said, we knew that we was talented, and we also knew that we would lose a lot. I mean, that was something that we knew kind of what the landscape was for us. But this year, I mean, we're just trying. I mean, we're only 5 or 6 games in, and we're just trying to figure it out, man. I mean, we've played good at times, and we've struggled at times. I got really just a few guys that have ever played varsity high school basketball, so it's all so different this year. Where last year we were so talented, and we knew kind of what our identity was going to be. And this year we're still trying to figure it out. We've won some games with our defense. We've won some games with our offense. I mean, the very first game we played was against the Riverdale team that we scored 80 points. Most of the starters only played the first 3 quarters. And then the last few games, we haven't shot the ball as well. And so we're still trying to figure out who we are. We've had some exciting times, and there's some potential for us to figure it out and be a tough team. But we're just figuring it out as we go right now.
Yeah, Coach, you mentioned how you stepped from being an assistant for several years into the head coaching job. And I don't think people realize how big of a transition that is, being the head guy after being the assistant on the bench. Really, that first full offseason this past summer that you just endured, that's really the major step where the growth can occur. So just kind of talk about just that transition for you, the guys becoming familiar with your coaching style, the way you like to run things, putting your culture on the program, and how that kind of shaped and turned things this offseason.
Well, I mean, a lot of it comes from just how much you learn from your head coaches before you as an assistant coach. And, I coached under Shane Clark and Nick Campbell, who were very similar. Obviously, Nick is under that Shane Clark coaching tree. And so those two guys were very similar. And then I coached under Joseph Wilson, who is a guy coming from Alabama that played a completely different style of basketball. And is that on my end?
Maybe, but just keep going, Coach. You're good.
All right. Well, anyway, I took a little bit from Nick and Clark that I learned from, and a little bit from Coach Wilson, and I've kind of adapted to my own style. But we're learning as the season goes with this group, but I'm also still learning as I go. I can tell you that we had a really great season last year, but I was in no way perfect. I haven't been perfect this year. I've already made some mistakes as a coach that I'm learning from as I go. And so while these guys are learning me, I'm still learning the job. That's what I had a parent meeting earlier in the year, and I told them that they're going to get mad at me at some point, and it's probably rightfully so. I'm confident in my ability. I learned a lot from the guys that before me. I mean, Shane Clark is one of the most known coaches in Tennessee for what he was able to do for years and years and years. And so I still have him to lean on. I still talk to Coach Wilson daily. I can't lean on Nick as much because he's such a in-district competitor, but I do still talk to Nick from time to time. But it's fun. This year is obviously more challenging just because we don't have as much scoring. Obviously, we're not scoring as many points. So it's more on me than it was in a previous year where, like I said, last year, I was just kind of guiding the ship, where this year we're having to be more detailed in practice and more detailed in scouts and game film. And so I'm learning as I go, and this group's learning me as we go.
With that being said, Coach, I am always fascinated, and we see it at, especially at the other 2 schools in your county. We won't name them for the Lawrence County listeners, but they know who I'm talking about. But you see at the smaller schools so many multi-sport athletes, but I feel like even at Lawrence County, you guys tap into that multi-sport realm, and we see guys like Alex Bedford, and especially a kid like Logan Clayton, who we saw some great things on the gridiron. What's it like knowing that when you finally kind of are able to coach those kids, that they've already endured a lot of challenges from other capacities, and what's that process like?
Well, the beautiful thing here is we still do have like a small town atmosphere, and kids want to play every sport. And luckily, we as coaches here at Lawrence County, like we kind of promote that. Like I'm all for kids going out and playing other sports. And yeah, you lose them for a little bit of time, but also, like you said, I mean, they're facing all kinds of challenges. Like I have a post player this year that I think going and playing football was the best thing that could have happened to him. And so, I mean, each sport presents its own challenges and really builds different styles of athleticism. And so, you know, actually, Alex, I mean, who is a phenomenal baseball player. I mean, signed to play at the University of Tennessee in baseball. But, I mean, if you saw him play basketball, you would think Alex could easily go somewhere to play basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's one of those things that it's a good thing that I think that we do have so many multi-sport athletes. Now, you mentioned Logan Clayton. Logan Clayton actually quit basketball. He is going to focus on just football and baseball, which is also fine. I mean, we're living in a world today that it is hard to play 3 sports. I mean, you got so many kids that are just playing one that it's hard to be great at 3 different sports, which I do hate that for some kids. But he made a decision that he's quarterback 1 for our football team. We'll get a lot of innings in baseball this year on the mound. And so he just made a decision to focus on a couple other sports, and which is fine. Like I said, we work with everybody around here, and we always want what's best for the kids.
Coach, last thing for me, obviously I was talking to some of the coaches in Robertson County here at the northern part of the state, just about this part of the schedule. And, you know, really for most teams this year, you're just trying to challenge your group with obviously non-district games, put them in tournament atmospheres where they continue to get better and to grow heading into the district slate. Obviously, you kind of mentioned how you guys need to maybe kind of work on scoring the basketball a little bit more. What else would you like to see from your team during this slate? Obviously, I know you guys went out of state for Thanksgiving tournament to play. Just kind of some things you want to see from your group heading into district play.
Well, yeah, I mean, last year our schedule was up and down where you're talking about like strength of schedule difficulty. This year, we got a gauntlet. I mean, like next week, guys, we go Loretta, Muscle Shoals, and Columbia all in the same week. So we ain't gonna have a choice but to get better and learn, and that's a good thing for us this year. It works out for this group well because we have so many things that we got to work on, and if we want to be competitive in our district, we got playing teams like Loretta, who obviously is AA, but everybody knows is a state contender this year. I mean, this is one of the best Loretta boys basketball teams I've seen in my lifetime. And then Muscle Shoals, who's a 7A in Alabama, and then following Columbia, who beat us a couple nights ago. I mean, I just want to keep seeing constant improvement. I don't know if y'all saw much of our Columbia game a couple nights ago. We played a great defensive game, I thought, holding Columbia to 39 points. Most nights, if you hold teams to 39 points, especially 4A Columbia, you're going to win. Unfortunately, we shot about 26% from the field. And when you shoot 26% from the field, you're probably not going to win. And so, but what I do feel good about that is that we took good shots. And so as we go through the season, I expect us to shoot the ball better than we are, but we're already seeing things defensively that we're improving on. And that's what we got to see, because if you're not going to score as many points as we did last year, you're going to have to play better defense. And so, those things kind of go hand in hand, where we're going to have to be able to win some games on the defensive end of the floor. So we're practicing it more. Like these, obviously, kids hate practicing defense. They'd much rather just go practice shooting from the three-point line. But we're having to focus on defensive things more this year. And so as we go game to game, that's really what the side of the basketball that we got to improve the most. The shooting will come. I have no doubt whatsoever the shooting will come.
Absolutely, and I love that. You gotta if something's not working, we gotta get better at this other facet. That seems simple, but obviously is not always executed the best. So
right, that's why we're working on it.
Absolutely. Real quick, I do have to ask you, Coach. You mentioned Loretto at home next Tuesday, right?
Yes, that's going to be.
What time do we got to get there to get a seat? Because I imagine that's going to be a high profile ticket.
Listen, that's one of those games. I can remember when I was in high school, you'd have kids leaving when school ended to go to Loretta or Summertown for those games. Luckily, we got a pretty big gym here, so we'll be holding a lot of people. But hey, that's one to mark on your calendar. That'll be a good one for us. I've seen a little bit of Loretta this year. They're very talented. They were talented before they added Grayson Burleson, and then you add a 2,000-point scorer to a state tournament team already. They're going to be Murfreesboro bound here in a couple months.
We look forward to keeping tabs on that. And then the meat grinder, we've used that phrase talking about the SEC. We had Chris Lee talking SEC basketball earlier on this program. We used the term meat grinder. That district schedule, is it going to be as tough as it was last year in your mind?
Well, I think a lot of people lost a lot. So it was so competitive every single night that, I mean, a lot of our teams, our district, are trying to figure it out just like us. And so I think it'll be competitive. Obviously, you got your Marshall County and Tullahoma who, I mean, just preseason, everybody knew what they had because, I mean, Tullahoma obviously caught fire late and played us in a region semis game. But Marshall County was one of the teams that actually beat us in the regular season last year, and they got everybody coming back. And so our district, man, is just tough. I mean, those two teams bringing everybody back, but like Giles County, I mean, Giles County had one of their best scorers last year was a freshman. And then obviously Central Magnet graduated a lot, so we're not sure what they got. But I mean, I think it's just going to be even. I mean, and that's really all you can ask for is it's going to be a dogfight every night. I mean, when I played, there was some bad teams in our district and the old District 8 AAA that you could almost count on every single night, and there's just not any of those. There's none that you can chalk up anymore, and that's fun. I mean, that makes for a challenge, but it also makes for a fun January and February.
Absolutely. As a broadcaster, I love hearing that because the games are exciting. It's not as fun, like you said, in those old days when you show up kind of taking a team for granted. So
right, it'll be a dogfight.
We look forward to that. Coach, thank you so much for taking some time and battling through some issues there to make sure that you joined us today. We sincerely appreciate that, and we see the tighten up in the back. Speaking of battling through some things.
It's battling through, baby. I mean, that's all we can do.
Absolutely. Coach Cliff, thank you so much for your time as always, partner.
Hey, thanks, man. I'd love to come back on. Just reach out.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. That was Bryce Clift. He is the Lawrence County boys basketball head coach as the Wildcats. Man, David, real quick, before we get into a couple other things, you ran through the schedule and the scores. Think about that. You win your opener 80-30 versus Riverdale, and then just 2 weeks later, you're in a nail biter, but it's 39-37. Kind of up and down. To me, that kind of, as a neutral observer, is fun because you don't know what sort of game to expect every single night, and you know that you're going to be competitive no matter which one it is.
Right. That just screams the ebbs and flows of high school basketball when you're dealing with young kids. Them night in and night out, it can be completely different. Where one night you're shooting the lights out of the gym, and the next night it feels like there's a cover on the basket. But as you mentioned, he said he's confident in what his team can do. And at this point of the year, like every team, you're just building on your schedule. You're trying to challenge your team and your groups with tough competition here in the non-district schedule of your season, the Thanksgiving tournaments, the Christmas tournaments, to try to prepare for a district championship and prepare them for the rigors of that. Because in district play, man, night in and night out, it's a challenge no matter who you're playing.
No doubt, no doubt. So thank you to Coach Clift once again for joining us on Coach's Corner presented by 10 Pin Alley. Before we close this segment, we do have to hand out a couple of pieces of hardware, beginning first with our Custom Stone Handlers Team of the Week. And our team of the week is none other than the Columbia Academy girls basketball team, who picked up a 70-52 win versus Ravenwood. And then, just for good measure, followed it up with a 36-22 win versus Laverne. So congrats to all of the members, coaches, and players alike of the Columbia Academy girls basketball team, who are our Custom Stone Handlers Into Win Life Team of the Week. Our Athlete of the Week, presented by TOA of Columbia, is Addie Runyon, who's a senior for Hampshire, the member of the Lady Hawks basketball team. She averaged 14 points across 3 games. 2 of them were wins for Hampshire last week. So congrats to Addie Runyon, once again, senior for Hampshire, a member of the Lady Hawks basketball program. She is our TOA of Columbia Athlete of the Week. Congrats to all of our winners. And once again, thanks to Bryce Clift for joining us on Coach's Corner, presented by 10 Pin Alley. When we come back, it is time for Throwback Thursday. David and I will kick it back. Mo was in studio for this one, but we will kick it back to a recent conversation with Bob KESLING, the voice of the Vols, set to make his retirement. He also gives some fashion tips at the end of the segment. So, you may know a little bit about the Vols and his retirement, but you're going to want to stick around for his NBA fashion tips as part of our Throwback Thursday segment. Comes your way right after this here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia.
Hi, I'm Riley, a certified physician associate here at Premier Foot and Ankle Centers of Tennessee. We have a couple locations, Murfreesboro, McMinnville, as well as Franklin. We treat people of all ages. We're excited to get you back on your feet and hope we can help you today.
Call us today to schedule an appointment. We look forward to seeing you.
Because here at Premier Foot and Ankle, we believe that
the journey begins with happy feet.
He shoots, and he scores!
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Joined by the voice of the Vols, Bob KESLING, who kind of rocked the Volunteer State earlier this month with the announcement that he would be stepping away from the mic at the end of the 24-25 Tennessee men's basketball season. Bob, first of all, thanks for joining us. We just had you on 2 or 3 months ago, I guess, right after your induction into the Tennessee Radio Hall of Fame, and really, really happy to have you on then, happy to have you on now. Not quite sure how I feel about the subject that we're talking about, though. But I will say this, it's nice to be able to go out on your own terms.
Yeah, you know, announcers and sometimes sports writers, Maurice, are kind of like baseball managers. You know, we don't usually get to go out on our own terms, but this just seemed right. You know, every year the past 5, we would get together at the end of the season and we would talk. And I was on a kind of a rollover contract, so they're just every year we talk. You know, what are you thinking? Well, I want to come back. But this year the university kind of decided they needed a plan because they didn't want me just to drop the mic at the end of the season and they might be in place. And so then we started talking about, well, long-term, and, you know, do you think you want to go 5 more years, or can you go a couple more, or what do you think? And I just started thinking about, you know, all the time I've been away from my family. We got a new grandkid coming in April, and I missed so much with my family. I just felt this was a pretty good time, and things are going well, you know, at the network, and everything's going well with UT, and everybody's on a high note. And I can kind of slip out the back door, and I don't think many people will miss me. So it's probably a good time to do it.
I think you are grossly underestimating that, but those grandchildren will make you do some things. That's for sure. So, I was going to ask you what the thought process was behind it, and I was going to ask you what the thought process was behind the timing, and you just explained them both. So, Bob, thanks. We appreciate it. Now, when you announce it like this, and you've still got football left, you've still got basketball left. What is your? I'm sure your approach doesn't change, but how does that impact you as you go about your business between now and the Final Four?
Yeah, well, it was not my idea to do it like this. I wanted to just, because we'd already made the decision, university knew what the situation was. I just wanted to drop the mic at the end of the basketball season and not be a distraction. And that's the last thing I want to do, is be a distraction to Coach Heupel or Coach Barnes. And I kind of feel like I am right now. And I just didn't want to do it that way. But the university kind of insisted, and they just said, listen, we're going to honor you at the Mississippi State game. And so I said, okay, and we're going to announce it. And I said, okay, well, what can you do? I mean, they tell you want to do it. But I'll tell you, it was interesting. For the Mississippi State game, I did a doubleheader that day because I did the game in Louisville, the basketball game in Louisville, which was at noon. And according to the travel with the charter airplane, I was supposed to get back here at 4:30 with the team. And, the game's at 7, so I'll just walk over to the stadium and it won't be a big deal. Well, we get done with the game and do the post game, and it's like 3 o'clock. We're going to the bus to get ready to go to the airport. And they say, well, the airplane is in Greensboro being refueled. And so it hadn't taken off yet, but it should be here soon. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I got a game at 7. How's this going to work? So 4:30, we finally head to the airport. We get there, we go through screening and all that stuff. I'm on the plane at 5 o'clock in Louisville when the Vol Network broadcast begins. And I'm getting a little nervous. We take off about 10 after 5. We land. It's only about a 30-minute flight from Louisville. We land at about 5:40, load the bus at 6 o'clock now. Luckily, they sent a police escort for me. And so we get on the team bus. We get to Thompson Bowling Arena at 6:30. And, of course, now the game is, the Vol Network broadcast is already on the air. And we're 30 minutes from kickoff. They get a gator, and they take me from the arena, and we go up and go around and go down Peyton Manning Pass. And you can imagine what the crowd was like, 30 minutes before kickoff. It was just almost impassable. Even with the police motorcycle with the sirens blaring and the lights going, people weren't getting out of the way, especially for me. And so we get to the gate, we get on the elevator, get upstairs, walk in the booth at 6:45, just in time to sit down, put my headset on, and the opening billboard for the game broadcast begins. So I had 1 minute to spare. But anyway, I kept my track alive. I never missed a UT game since I've been doing this, and I wasn't about ready to start Saturday night. But that's about as close as I've come to missing one.
Yeah, that was literally going to be my question for you, Bob, was obviously of the most magnitude there, but sounds like that was by far your closest call in terms to a missed assignment, right?
Yeah, it really is. And but through the whole time, they just said, well, the plane's going to be here. Don't worry about it. And Mary Carter, who does the ops work for Coach Barnes, she just everything be fine. We'll get a police escort. You'll be fine. And I'm not sure the people at the Vol Network were that calm. But there's not much you can do about it. You're sitting on the airport on the tarmac in Louisville, and not much you can do about it. So you can't get up and start running them down the aisle, screaming and yelling. So just we'll get there, and everything will work out. And so we did, and it I guess it's one for the banquet circuit. I can tell that, and as we go forward. But we made it, and it was a great night. And Tennessee won, and everything was great.
Coming in on the glamorous gator for the game.
Yeah, it's pretty in the back seat. I didn't get to sit in the front seat as we're coming in. They had another guy.
Oh, you were being chauffeured on the game.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it looked like I was in the Pope Mobile or something like that, but nobody got out of the way for us. But anyway, we got there in time.
Bob Kesling, the voice of the Vols, joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Bob and the university announced his retirement earlier this month, effective at the end of the season. The last guy that held your position that retired, they won a national championship for him. Have you discussed that with Josh and with Rick, what their responsibility is as far as keeping this tradition up?
Absolutely. I was able to, we had I guess the press conference was a week ago Thursday. And so I met with both of the coaches on Wednesday before the announcement. And I told Coach Heupel the same thing. You know, John Ward went out on a national championship, and I expect nothing less from you, big boy. Let's get going. And he said, that's the plan. So anyway, so the plans are in work. They know the pressure's on them. And, you know, I would love to go out on a Final Four. That's one thing I haven't done since I've been doing this. And believe it or not, in the 26 years, Tennessee hadn't won an SEC football championship. So I'd like to get one of those and make it to the college football playoffs, and that'd be a great way to go out. So just got to take care of business, and we're just concentrating on UTEP, Maurice. You know how that goes. We're just concentrating on UTEP.
Yeah, imagine consummate professional. You know, that's where all of your responsibilities lie this week is breaking down the third string quarterback for UTEP and whether he throws left-handed or right-handed, I'm sure, Bob. Right?
I'm studying Kennesaw State film today to see how UTEP knocked off Kennesaw State. So that's what I'm working on today.
I guess another kind of in that same vein, have you deciphered, do you know the tiebreakers for the SEC football by chance or by memory at this point?
Does anybody know them?
No one really does, but I just want to see if you'll tell the truth or not.
I have no idea. I don't know how the playoff works. I don't know how they slide them up and down each week. I don't know how they value 2-loss teams against 1-loss teams and conference champions. I do think one thing that you would think you'd get rewarded for making it to a conference championship game, but a lot of these scenarios are if you get there and lose, that can knock you out of the playoffs. And I'm not sure that's totally right. And so I hope some way they can, and I guess that means we got to go to 16 or 18 teams to make sure that's not right. But, you know, some of these teams that have 2 losses and go to the conference championship game and they lose and they get knocked out of the playoffs, you know, you fought so hard to get to the conference championship game. There should be some reward for that, but apparently that's not the way it's going to be. But we'll just wait till after this week, and maybe next week it'll be a lot clearer about who's going to go to the SEC championship game. But I think that's also one thing that I don't like about the playoffs is the fact that nobody's really talking about the SEC championship game. Everybody's talking about who's in the playoffs. And that SEC championship game has been so special since it started back in '92. And it means something to win the Southeastern Conference now, especially with this expansion. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to win a game, let alone win a championship. But nobody talks about the championship game anymore. It's all about the playoffs. And I think that's a bad thing.
And that's probably a bad thing in these other conferences as well, Bob. I mean, obviously we are right here in Southeastern Conference country, and obviously it just means more, but I would imagine the same sentiment exists, you know, in the Big Ten, in the Atlantic Coast Conference, that kind of thing. So
we know that they've already said that, you know, Oregon has already clinched a spot in the Big Ten championship game. So that's kind of there was some talk about that, but of course up there it's Ohio State and Indiana who's going to win that game this week and who goes on to the championship game to play Oregon. So there's a little bit more talk about it up there, but I don't hear anybody here in and around this part, at least in East Tennessee, talking about the SEC championship game. It's all about the playoffs.
It could very well be because they don't know who's going to be in it.
Well, that's true. Yeah. And, but the one thing you do know, if Tennessee is to make it, Tennessee's got to get some help because there are a lot of tiebreakers that are going against Tennessee right now. And so, again, we'll just see how it plays out.
Yeah. Bob KESLING, the voice of the Vols, joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Bob, you talked about, you know, getting from Louisville back to Knoxville for the Mississippi State game. The overlap is always fun, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, next week we got a basketball game at 4:00 against UT Martin. And then at 8:00 we got Vol calls. So I got another doubleheader coming up next week. So, but you know, that's, as you guys know, the games and shows like this are fun. It's all the other stuff, you know, the travel and the prep work and all that. So that's what's laborious. But the doing the games, when you finally sit down and put the headset on, that's when it's fun. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. And I hope to enjoy. We got some basketball's got some, of course, they're in the Bahamas right now, and I'm up here doing Tennessee UTEP. I couldn't finagle that trip. I couldn't get the Vol Network Learjet out of the Bahamas to get me back up here. But so anyway, John Wilkerson's down there doing basketball, and I'm getting ready for football. But, we get to go to New York coming up, and got a bunch of trips, and, go to Texas and Oklahoma this year. So I've never done a basketball game at Oklahoma, so I'm looking forward to that. So, a lot of games coming up, and I think Tennessee's basketball team is going to be pretty good. And we got a shot to make a long run in the SEC and also hopefully in the NCAA tournament as well.
Bob, when you consider, this time next year you will be doing something else or doing nothing. What do you think you're going to miss about this?
Oh, I'll miss the game days. There's no question about that. I've always said I played football from first grade, tackle football from first grade all the way through my freshman year at Tennessee, and I played on the freshman team here in 72. Mo, I had 9 carries for 36 yards, just in case you need to know that.
Hey, that's a 4-yard average, man.
That's good average.
Right. Yeah. And I told Coach Fulmer that all the time when he was a graduate assistant coach on that team. I told him, look at my numbers. I'm averaging 4 yards a carry. Give me the ball more. And he was a little reluctant to do that. So, but I've been going to an SEC football and basketball game virtually every weekend working every weekend since 1974. And just thinking, it's time for me to spend some time at home with the family. I miss so much with my daughters, miss a lot of their soccer games and horseback riding competitions and all that stuff. And I don't really want to, and I didn't see a single one of my grandkids' football games this fall because they conflicted with Tennessee games. And I don't want to miss any more of those. I want to watch them grow up and enjoy them. And this just felt right and just a good time to move on and let somebody else sit in the seat. I've been blessed. I mean, I came down here in 1972 from Dayton, Ohio, as a walk-on fullback on the Tennessee team. And who would have thought that here, all these years later, that I'm still in Knoxville. I haven't moved. I've done so many great things on the Vol Network, and I've worked for Jefferson Pilot, and I've done Lady Vol, called Pat Summit's first 6 national championships. I've done games for ESPN. I've done games for CBS Westwood One Radio. I've done so many great things. The SEC radio network, called championship games on the SEC radio network. And I've never had to move my family one time. And in this business, most guys are always moving around for a different job and pulling their kids out of school. I haven't had to do that. And when I came here, I didn't know a single person in the state of Tennessee. I didn't know anybody on the Tennessee football team. I never met a single soul. I talked to Bill Battle for about 5 minutes and Kurt Watson and Don McCleary, the 2 freshman running back coaches, for about 5 minutes. And that was it. And so when I showed up here in 72, I didn't even know if I was going to be able to make it through 2-a-day practice sessions. And I didn't even know if I'd even make it to the first day of classes, but I did, and got to play, wear the orange shirt against Notre Dame and Alabama and some of those folks. And that was just, those are memories that I'll take with me forever. But, I've been on the road or doing something every weekend since basically 74. And so it's about time I started doing something with my wife and my family. And that's just kind of the way we talked about it.
Bob, that was great stuff. And you painted a good picture there, but I do got to ask, there's a lot of good high school football over in East Tennessee. You seem like a guy that would put on a headset if asked. Do we get any cameos from you down the road, do you think?
I don't know. I don't know what's going to come. The only thing I know for sure is that my wife has told me when I officially become retired that she's going to limit me to 1 hour of Seinfeld a day. That's all I get. And I'm trying to adjust to that because, if the Bubble Boy comes on, you're almost addicted to watch that. So I'm trying to adjust to that, but there'll be some other adjustments. I don't foresee me doing any broadcasting, but you never say never. You don't know what's going to come up, and how this industry is changing and moving and doing different things. I don't know what's in store going forward, but it'll have to be something that doesn't get me on the road very much and something that doesn't take a lot of time away from home because I've already done that.
Other quick question, Bob. This is on Volopedia, which is from the UTK website, but it claims, you're an orange and white guy, but it claims you're a big Celtics guy as well. And you buy a new pair of green shoes every time they win a title.
Correct.
Is there any photographic evidence? I'd love to see that collection because you've undoubtedly got a lot of them.
You know, I might have to do that because they're upstairs in the winter closet. And I just got a new pair of green ones this year since they won the championship. And I hate to admit this, what a big Celtic fan I am. My daughters were born in 1984 and 1986. And one of the reasons that I remember that is that's 2 years that the Celtics won championship.
The Lakers.
And so about a couple years after the 86 championship, I mentioned to my wife, I said, the Celtics haven't won a championship in a while. And she stopped that right now. She said, listen, you're going to have to figure out another way to motivate your team because we ain't doing that. You're going to have to figure something out. That's not doing it. But I've got a pair of 1974 Pro Keds like JoJo White used to wear.
Oh, my.
Those are vintage. In 81, I couldn't find a pair of shoes. In fact, I told my wife we were going to Cape Cod for vacation that summer. The real reason I was going up to Boston to see if I can find some green shoes. And I went to she wanted to know why I was going to all these sporting goods shops because I was looking for a pair of green shoes. I couldn't find them. And so finally I honed up to what I was doing. And she wrote Red Auerbach a note. Said, my husband gets a pair of green shoes every time you win a championship. We haven't been able to find any. Could you help? And about 2 weeks later, a box came in the mail to the house. And she said he wears a size 10. There was a box from Boston Garden, a pair of size 10 Puma shoes, not Pumas, ponies, like Cedric Maxwell used to wear. Size 10, no note, no bill, no nothing. And so it had to be from Red Auerbach. So Mike Soroki, Maurice, you might remember Mike Soroki when he used to work for the Sentinel. But anyway, he didn't believe me that Red Auerbach just sent me a pair of shoes. And so he called up to Boston Garden, got Red Auerbach on the phone. He said, did you send a sportscaster here in Knoxville a pair of green shoes? I said, I did. He said, green shoes are so dang ugly. I can't believe he wanted a pair of green shoes. Usually people just want a pair of socks. I send those. But yeah, I sent him a pair of shoes. So I've got those, and I've got shoes from 86 and 84 and all those. Yeah, so they're up in the closet. I probably need to take a picture of them because it is pretty cool. I don't wear them I wore the green ones, the new ones, when the Celtics opened their season, and I'll put them on a couple of times during the year. But yeah, the green shoes that's a big deal. In fact, when we bought our house, our first house, we extended that way so I could put a basketball goal up so I could shoot because I used to love to shoot baskets. And I got the artist over at the TV station to paint a big Boston Celtic logo in the middle of the driveway without telling my wife. She wasn't too thrilled with that. She adjusted. So anyway, I had a big, seriously, I mean, it was, I don't know how big it was. It wasn't as big as the one in the center of the floor up at Boston Garden, but it was pretty dang big.
Bob Kesling, the voice of the Vols. And
too much information for you guys.
No, it's not too much.
Super
it's fantastic, man. You don't get that just anywhere. That's fantastic. I wanted to ask you, John Ward handled those duties for 30 years. You've handled them for 25, 55 years, two guys. What does that mean to you?
Well, it'd be 31 and 26. So that's 57.
Okay. Yeah.
And then, and of course, John did basketball in 64. What it means to me is since 1968, everybody that has called games on the Vol Network, they've been Tennessee grads. And that's pretty special. I would venture to say there's no other network in America that could say that since 1968, everybody calling games has been a graduate of the University of Tennessee. So we take a lot of pride in it. And, we take a lot of pride in the network. There haven't been that many announcers since Lindsay formed it 75 years ago. Lindsay Nelson was the first. Alan Stout did it for a couple years and went off to Cincinnati. And then George Mooney and then John Ward and myself. That's not a lot of announcers over 75 years. So we're kind of proud of the longevity of the announcers. And And I think all of us have been very dedicated to making sure that the Vol Network stays at a very high level and the broadcast quality and the programming is at a high level. And we're proud of that.
Bob Kesling, the voice of the Vols until April, because Tennessee is going to be playing basketball that long, right?
That's the plan. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. Bob, we appreciate you taking some time with us, man. Congratulations again, and hope to catch up with you between now and then.
That'd be great. Anytime, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
So, you want to be a part of the Busy Bee team, huh? Well, how do you see yourself fitting into the organization? Oh, I get it. You want to be a weather bee.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new, handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Welcome back, folks. Final segment of Throwback Thursday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented as always by TOA of Columbia, alongside David Wilson. Wade Neely saying hello. And David, anytime you get to catch up with Bob Kesling is good. And man, just hearing the numbers and the longevity, not just of Bob, but of the years and years of decades of the broadcast crew for the Vol Network was kind of impressive to hear, even a second time hearing it from Bob there.
Right. Yeah. Anytime you guys get to sit down with Bob, it's a treat. Just the knowledge, kind of, we talked about LeBron earlier, just a historian of the game, everything that he's witnessed throughout his career up in the booth at Tennessee. It's obviously a hat tip to him and just kind of the work that he does.
Absolutely. We enjoyed catching up with Bob, and that dream is still alive. You know, John Ward goes out with the national championship. Tennessee is in the college football playoff. So we shall see if he is going to follow the same trajectory as his predecessor. Speaking of playoffs, David, before we get out of here, we do have a big game in the NFL tonight with massive playoff implications. The NFC North kind of feels like it's been the Lions in a runaway, but if the Packers can go into the Motor City tonight and pull off a win, it feels like that division is all of a sudden really up for grabs between them two and the Vikings also in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, Detroit only has one loss on the year. Minnesota has 2 and Green Bay has 3. So they're all stacked up there right together. And as you mentioned, if Green Bay can go into Motown tonight and pull the quote unquote upset on Thursday Night Football, that just kind of throws in the monkey wrench in everybody's plans that the Lions are going to cruise to the first round bye in NFC playoffs. And, you know, the Eagles are right there at the 2 seed right now in NFC playoff picture as well. So, you know, I've listened to TV, ESPN, NFL Network, and a lot of people say it's a 2-horse race in the NFC between Detroit and Philadelphia. And I'm not so sure. I don't know if that's because my mom is a Packers fan, but the Packers are a really talented football team. Jordan Love is finally healthy coming off that knee injury. In the last 2 weeks, he has not turned over the football. And so if Jordan Love plays, you know, turnover-free football, the Packers are a really good team offensively. Now, then the question marks become defensively, but the Packers offense has so many weapons, and when Jordan Love is taking care of the football, that only makes them more dangerous. So tonight should be a really good matchup.
Absolutely. And that's kind of where I land too, David, is it feels like you kind of just have gone through this season and it's like, oh, okay, the Lions, oh, okay, the Eagles. But it's kind of a slippery slope, right? I mean, if Green Bay, especially tonight, obviously, if they win this game tonight, not only does it throw the 1 seed into flux for the Lions, but it throws the entire division into flux, and Minnesota is still to be contended with as well. So I guess in a sense where I'm going with that is it feels like we've kind of almost got this false sense of security a little bit if you're Lions fans, because they've been so dominant in a lot of their games. But as you mentioned, they're only a game up here, and they're only a couple games up on the other two teams that are chasing them.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions offense is out of this world. You have Sonic and Knuckles, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Jamison Williams. Like, the list goes on and on. You got Jared Goff. The real question is the Lions have suffered a lot of injuries on that defense. No Alex Anzalone. No Carlton Davis, no Aiden Hutchinson, no Pascal. The list goes on and on. No Malcolm Rodriguez, who went down last week. So if Green Bay can exploit that, running the football, Josh Jacobs, and through their passing game with Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Tucker Kraft, the Packers can score on that Detroit defense. That Detroit defense is susceptible to giving up points. Now, the real question is can Green Bay get enough stops? But yeah, it should be a really good matchup. Those teams are rivals in the NFC North, and they seem to always play really good football.
Real quickly, the odds makers say that game is a 3-point spread. Obviously, Detroit is at home and is the favorite. Does Green Bay get the win in your mind tonight?
I think that's a really tall task. I would consider Detroit the favorite in this one just because they're at home. Just because I don't think Green Bay's defensively can slow down that rushing attack between David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs and that powerful offensive line. I think Green Bay can stay in the game because of the defensive injuries for Detroit. But that offensive line for Detroit is nasty. And I'll say this. Dan Campbell is scary coach to go up against on the opposing sideline because he's risk it or no biscuit. He's not afraid to go for it. He's all chips in. He'll do it all to win football games. 4th and 1, he's going to go. 4th and 2, he's going to go. He trusts his offensive line. And I think that just makes Detroit a dangerous football team.
I agree. I'm walking up to the edge of the cliff of picking the Packers, but I can't pick them tonight. I just until it feels like Detroit is playing with just a little bit of fire, and it feels like it's a very slippery slope. But I can't pick them. I like Detroit to win this game tonight. Maybe this will be one of the. Maybe this real quick. Maybe this will be one of the rare entertaining Thursday night games. They're usually kind of clunkers.
Yeah, I think there's more on the line tonight actually for Detroit to win because if you win this game, you almost could, in a sense, kick the Packers out of contention for the NFC North, and it's now a 2-horse race between you and Minnesota. Green Bay, I think they've kind of settled in where they might not catch the Lions anyway. I think they've kind of locked and reserved themselves into being a wild card. I think they're okay with that.
Yeah. Real quickly, Dave, before we get you out of here, the Jaguars have placed Trevor Lawrence on injured reserve. Very likely will end his season. They come to Nashville Sunday. Given the record the Titans have had against backup quarterbacks at times over the last couple of years, is that a good thing or a bad thing in your mind with Mac Jones coming to town?
You never know with the Titans. I always like to tell my friends that when you expect them to lose, they win. And when you expect them to win, they somehow find a way to lose. I think Jacksonville has talent on their roster. Nobody can dispute that the Jacksonville Jaguars are a talented football team. They just not have put it together. So I think the Titans should be the favorite. I would assume you can tell me they're probably a 3.5, 4-point favorite, maybe. But I think you can take progress from what Will Levis has done the last couple of weeks and how he's taking care of the football and he hasn't hurt you. I think that gives the Titans an edge in this one where they can find a way to win this football game against Mac Jones.
You said it best. Yeah, 3.5-point favorite are the Titans, which may sound surprising, but the Jags are 2-10, and they are trotting out a backup quarterback. So that'll be a Sunday noon kickoff at home. We'll see if Tennessee can eke out a win. 4 of their last 5 games are in the division, so this could be a really frustrating end to the season for the Titans if they lose some games, obviously, but it could be a frustrating end to the season if they win some games because you might be sitting there saying what could have been. David, I want to say thank you very much for joining us today, my friend. Mo was down in Chattanooga, but we certainly appreciate you on spot duty today, my man.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime, guys. I appreciate y'all having me.
Thank you very much to David Wilson for joining us. As always, it's been a treat being with you guys here on the Throwback Thursday edition of the program. A special reminder, tomorrow's show, we do begin at 1:30. Mo is set to return. He will still be in Chattanooga, but he's going to make his way to a cozy spot and join us for the show. So we look forward to that. Again, a 1:30 start for Blue Cross Bowl coverage, and we will see you guys on the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports today. Wade Neely saying so long. Thanks again to David Wilson and producer Mark Rogers. We're out.